Okay. Okay. Welcome to the March 23rd meeting of the Lower Providence Zoning Hearing Board. If I can ask you all please to stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Deborah, if you'll take the roll, please.
My pleasure. Ms. Alzamora.
Here.
Ms. Eske.
Here.
Mr. Pucci.
Here.
Mr. Hart.
Here.
Ms. Hager.
Here.
We're missing Mr. Berquist. You're not on our list. So.
Here.
And Mr. Berquist.
Okay, Patty, will you read our statement, please?
The zoning hearing board will give all interested parties an opportunity to ask questions and testify in connection with the applications being heard tonight. After a witness for the applicant completes testimony, you will be given an opportunity to ask questions of that witness. In addition, after an applicant has completed its case, you will also be given an opportunity to testify, which will require you to be sworn in as a witness. If you wish to participate in the hearing on an application, you should complete the entry of appearance form, which will be provided to you by the zoning officer. We ask your cooperation in maintaining silence during the hearings so that both the board and the court reporter can hear the testimony of the witnesses. We also ask that all cell phones be turned off.
Thank you, Patty. We also have Keith McLennan, our solicitor, and Mike Mazinski, our zoning officer, and Paula with no last name, who is our court reporter. I think just to review, when an applicant comes up, there are two things that the audience can do. After they present their application, you can ask questions of that person. And then after that, if you want to testify, which means to give a statement whether you're for the project or against the project. So you get two turns to speak. Last month, we had the Providence Point come in, which is the old Collegeville Inn, to present us with their information. And Keith, if you will follow up on that.
By way of background, we had a hearing last month, and in that hearing, Providence Place presented their request for variances and interpretations of the zoning ordinance. We heard them out, as well as heard out a number of various residents. We reserved decision until this evening. The board has met, and the board will continue to meet on the subject. However, before they render any decision, we wanted to open the floor or the mic to anyone who had anything new to add from last month's meeting vis-a-vis the Providence Place application. I see Ronan Keenan's back there. Ronan, do you have any things that you want to add, in essence, summing up or closing or anything of that sort? Anyone else? Mr. Costanza, do you have anything that you want to bring up? Yes. Come on up. I have some great questions. Come on up, as long as it's new.
It has to be new information, not that we've gone over several times.
Thanks. Did you share those with Mr. Keenan at all, or you can take one of these if you need one?
He's got a million of them. Do you all have them?
I don't need one. I won't take one. And try not to lose your board by going too long and too far. But remember, this is new material that we're looking for, obviously, and we recognize from the previous hearing what your concern is. So I don't want you to belabor that point. We certainly understand and get it. Some of the things that you may want to talk about may not be here tonight before us, because this is zoning, remember. If there's issues with traffic, if there's issues with the way the property is being developed, that's all for the township via the development process, not necessarily zoning. So let's try and keep us on the zoning issue, which is the steep slope issue, and the floodplain retaining wall issues and fill. Those are basically the requests that they've made for variances, and those are the only real issues that are before us. So with those parameters, if you can tell us what it is that's on your mind, we're all ears.
Okay. Well, just I've been mostly in relation to the
Oh, turn the mic. Oh, his mic.
as far as the floodplain goes, I've been just scratching my head over this, and I've been wondering why anything has to happen down in that lower paved parking lot area. I noted on this plan, the blue line is where the existing floodplain is. The orange line is where they're proposing to build this flood wall. Now, where at the green line is where the Collegeville Inn is. And so why does any of this area have to be touched at all other than to remove the paving?
I think all of that was explained by the engineer last month, that they want to help with the flooding further down and keep the flooding off the parking lot of the inn. So I think all those questions really had been answered last month.
Well, I don't think so at all, because this is not an area where they would be parking anymore. And this is the area that currently floods and will continue to flood. But in this case, there's no need for modification to that.
You think they should leave the macadam?
No, that's the only modification that has to happen, is the blacktop has to be removed.
You think they should not build the retaining wall?
There's no reason for it.
Did you discuss that with the engineer last month?
No, that's why I'm bringing it up tonight, because this is a new thought process.
Well, no, I think the issue was addressed in the sense that they wanted to try and control the flooding of the whole area. And as you point out, the floodplain goes right through the Collegeville Inn, essentially, where it abuts that corner there, it looks like. So from that perspective, I believe that they're trying to control that. And I know your concern, which is that if they build this wall, in essence, it'll funnel more water down to where your property is, which is we understand a legitimate concern. But I think that's the whole idea as to the studies that they've conducted and the workarounds that they're proposing. But again, I think that's something that really goes to the issue of the development side of it as opposed to the zoning side of it.
Well, except that the flood, where the floodplain goes through the Collegeville Inn, it's only affecting the basement. It's not affecting any of the rest of the building. So if the existing foundation wall is used as their retaining wall for the creek, nothing else has to be touched there, with the exception of removing the paving.
Are you suggesting that they not put up the retaining wall and they allow it to flood into the basement?
I'm suggesting that they use the basement wall, close off the doors, and it doesn't flood anymore. They put flood doors on that before. All that has to happen to make that their retaining wall is to simply close in that doorway with a masonry wall, which is the size of a door. That's where the water gets into the basement.
Doesn't that deny them the use of their property, though, if they close off the basement in that way? I don't know what's down there.
It only denies them the use of the basement.
But still, they're building, and that's the issue.
Where their mechanicals are?
No, they're not. The mechanicals are located on this drawing to the left side where that little driveway goes down, which could be their truck access road also. Which I noted
Is that one of the
here.
other items you wanted to raise? Was that part of it, too?
Yeah, I mentioned that on here, that with all these, you told me not to get involved with the roadways, but there are some easy solutions to the entrance of this property. If they don't do any of this work on the lower hand, they're saving themselves tons of money. They can easily make a new entrance to Petchins Mill Road through the property that's currently for sale and going through their upper property. I noted that where I say reroute Petchins Mill Road on this plan.
But isn't that really something that you should be talking to them about as opposed to
Absolutely. and
what
I
we can't really opine as to whether they should do something differently with the neighbor or the property that's for sale? That would be up to them. If they're going to save money with it, they'd probably want to hear
Well,
from you.
Yeah, you asked me about the truck access, and that's when I pointed that out, that if that lower road entrance at the traffic light became their truck access, then they would need another access, and that's why I brought up that other idea. But, I mean, this, again, you're asking about the flooding conditions. Well, the creek floods, and that's why we have floodplains. That floodplain right now happens to be paved as a parking area.
Right.
If you get rid of the pavement, the floodplain is just what it was intended to do. And from their plan, it's not impinging on anything that they wanted to do with that area.
Well, except that
It's
it
going
floods
to
the
flood the
basement.
building.
Well, yeah, no, it doesn't flood the building. They lose part of the basement.
Well, that's part of the building.
Well, as opposed to, so that rather than this entire area, rather than have this entire area disturbed, as opposed to leaving that much of the basement of the Collegeville end is the difference that I'm talking about. There's no need to do anything but remove this pavement.
But what is your,
The bridge ends here, which is where the floodplain starts. They don't have to get into any of the historic bridge structure.
They're not going to. That was all discussed. They're not going to touch the bridge.
No, that's not true. They didn't prove how they could possibly do that.
That comes
So-
up later.
yeah, again, that's a
in the-
development issue, because we're not really involved in the bridge per se, but we can only trust that the township in their development of this, approval of the development is
well,
going to
that-
do it in a way that's not going to
That was just an ancillary part of what my comment was. My comment was that the area that's currently natural floodplain, there's no reason to change that.
But, okay, that's fine
it
from your
doesn't-
perspective. Now, the next question is, why should it not, why should they do what you're suggesting? How's it going to impact you or anyone else?
Well, because as a resident of the township, for them not to impact our creek, our floodplain, and them flooding my house, they're going to give up half of the basement of one building. I'm saying that to me is a reasonable trade.
But your suggestion is that as a result of them installing this wall, that it's going to cause more flooding on your property, is what your premise is, I presume.
Correct.
But you don't have any
funneling
real
a
evidence
greater-
of that, based upon what the engineer studies say that we saw last month. The engineering said that that would not happen. Now, of course, if you have something that's contrary to that, then certainly let us know.
Until I've gotten my opportunity to see all the other studies from all the different engineers that are involved in this, I can only tell you that using what I would call common sense or seat of the pants engineering, anytime you funnel water and accept that kind of flooding and accept the fact that it requires constant maintenance where they don't even have access to it to maintain it, they can't bring equipment over an 18-foot wall to maintain that, then there's something wrong with that plan. So that's
But wasn't that addressed last month?
They
The
do have
engineer,
the new information that I'm bringing to you today is that this entire thought of disturbing this whole floodplain is unnecessary. And if the trade-off that we are willing to negotiate with them, instead of disturbing the floodplain of this creek, that they're willing to give up, close off half of their basement, I think that that's really a very reasonable suggestion to give to them as a trade-off to not disturbing the floodplain.
well, I hear what you're saying, and whatever conditions we impose, if the board decides to grant the application or the variance request, then those conditions obviously would be that they would have to conform to make sure that there isn't any sort of downriver or downstream problems from your perspective. That's goes under the floodplain ordinance. So I think you're protected from that perspective. It's just a question of you then huddling with them to make sure that what is ultimately constructed is done in a way that's not going to adversely affect your situation.
Do you-
I'm not
do-
sure
do you
how
ha-
to respond to that, other than, again, the new information that I'm bringing to you is to say there are solutions that are way less invasive to the natural elements here of the floodplain of this creek.
But these are thoughts of yours. You have any engineering backing to support your thoughts?
I've been a builder and a
No, that's-
contractor and architectural designer for 40 years. I've lived on that creek for 35 years. I am a well-respected and nationally known environmental designer and an environmentalist. And do I know about this? Do I know about ecosystems? Absolutely.
I can
Do I
appreciate
know
all of
about
that.
watersheds? Absolutely.
And I know all of those things, not yet. I know all those things that you do and that you're very concerned about the community. But again, I'll ask you, do you have any engineering studies other than your own to back what you're suggesting?
Well, I haven't at this point had an opportunity. If the suggestion is that the residents of Petchins Mill Road should go out and get our own engineers, hire our own engineers, because the township is not going to provide us with that representation, then yes, we will do that. And in that case, I ask that the township withhold any determination tonight so that we can follow through on getting that type of engineering to present to you.
Do you know that this is one of the first steps of many that they have to go through before this happens?
I've been trying to understand more about that process. We just found out in the last week that in order for us to get the information that we know, that we need to know to talk to the proper people that are involved in those other processes, we have to file a Freedom of Information petition, which we did yesterday. We will get the information that we need of the other organizations' contact within 5 days. Up till now, I have no idea who to call at the EPA. I have no idea who to call at the DEP. I have no idea who to call at PennDOT. We're now hopefully on the right road to get that information so that I can be involved. Our committee of citizens from Petchins Mill Road can partake in these discussions before it comes here and becomes a last-minute issue for us to try to have our say in.
With all of your background and all the things that you have done, environmentally, planning, building, so you have no idea who you're to contact with any of these agencies, that this group has to go through to get this approved. So this is not the last step. This is barely a baby step.
Mm-hmm.
They just want to be able to build a driveway on a steep slope.
Well,
They want to have a little less
should we-
recreational area. So this is the first of many, many steps. So you'll have a lot of opportunities to get in touch with all those agencies and find out all that information.
Well, that's wonderful. That's what we're trying to do, and that's why I'm hoping that any determination by this committee, this board, will be deferred until we have an opportunity to do that.
And
We have-
how long do you think that should be?
Well, I have 5 days, or the township has 5 days to give me the names of the contact people that are already involved in the discussions with the developer, which we have not had the opportunity to be involved in yet.
Well, let me make America great again and trump you on this. We
That's
can't.
not the
we
beginning of a
can't-
great question.
We
I hope
can't
it's a
wait.
great statement.
We can't wait because once the application is submitted and there's a hearing, we have 45 days from then in an effort to make a decision. Otherwise, they get what they want. So we don't have the luxury of time in this instance.
Well, give us a deadline. That
We're
try to
already at the deadline because it's 45 days from the last hearing. So it's not going to change necessarily what we do because what you're talking about is just what you perceive to be a better way of doing this. And that better way of doing it, you can work with them on to try and make that happen. Right now, what we have before us is what was testified to last month, and you did have a large block of time to testify as to what you thought was the right thing to do. The chair says that this is an incremental step, and this is just the beginning. This is actually this has been going on for a period of time. So now that not the zoning, but the development process has been going on for a period of time. So the question is,
Keith, you know that we've had some difficulties in getting information. So, and I don't think that we want to address that again
no,
tonight.
but I hear
will
what you're
tell you
saying,
that-
and we had that debate last month. The question is, we've had a month. You called me last week and said that was the first that you knew you had to get a Freedom of Information Act search done. So what were you doing for 4 weeks before then? So what I'm telling you is...
No. Now you've made 5 weeks out of 3.5 weeks.
Excuse
So-
me, we're getting way beyond where we need to be in this discussion, and we certainly understand your concern, and we appreciate it, and we certainly want the residents of the municipality to come and give us their ideas and their thoughts. But we've been down this road several times, and as Mr. McLennan said, there is a time factor here. They make an application, and we have to move down the line. If we don't make a decision, they get it by right, and then you have no protection. And you don't know yet what we're going to do, and perhaps when we bring these different things up, there will be protections put in, so you will be covered. We're not looking to flood you out, if you will. We're looking to protect the people. That's part of what we're supposed to do, but we have guidelines. We can only do what we're allowed to do.
Well, I thank you for that, and I understand that. I was asked if there was any new information that I could present tonight, which is what I did. The new information is that this work is not necessary to protect the floodplain. I'm sorry, let me state that again. This work is not necessary to give these developers an opportunity to develop that property. What is new that I'm presenting to you tonight is that we don't need to disturb this floodplain. We don't need to cause more flooding. Okay? It does not take much of a concession or a rethinking of how this project is to be developed, and it has very little impact on them. Whether or not...
In your opinion.
In my opinion, that's correct. And I don't have an army of engineers behind me, but I am simply asking that based on this new information, that you consider it. That's what I came up here to say.
And that's why we asked you to do so.
And I didn't want to get into an argument about it, but if my new information is being taken as not being new information and that I'm presenting it to you to try to be difficult, that's not what I'm about.
No, we don't say that at all. What we're saying is, it is new information, it's a new idea.
Right, so you might have to think about it.
But that
right?
idea certainly is something that gets factored into every decision that's employed throughout the development process. What we're suggesting is that this may not be the best forum for which you should be introducing this information. I think that is better introduced vis-a-vis the development process and in discussions with the developer. That's the key, I think, in this instance, because whatever we decide to do, we have to decide to do it based upon what's going to be in the best interest of the community. And that community...
We're playing catch-up right now. We're trying to catch up with the process. We've been behind the whole way because we've had difficulties in getting the information in a timely fashion that we could get ahead of the process and be more engaged in the process.
The problem
I
is
think I've said enough, and I appreciate the board hearing what I have to say, and I hope that you take this into consideration, that lesser impact is really what we need.
Less is more, is your suggestion.
No. Less isn't necessarily more, but less can be better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your input.
Sure.
Yes, is it new information?
You tell me if it is, but I would like
And
to...
just introduce yourself
Lori
again.
Costanza, 80 Kings Mill Road. I would like to not have a tone to it, though.
A what?
A tone.
A tone, thank you. I would set requests now that they have not proven that they can't do what they want to do with this property without a variance to the floodplain, because there are more options that would have to be considered first. So I don't see where they really have proven a case for a variance in the floodplain. It's a pretty serious variance. If you delay, then they get what they want. I would suggest that you deny it and let them appeal it, so we get the time to look and see if the property is really usable for their purpose without all that work.
It's a creative argument, and I appreciate that. The point, however, is we're not going to get involved in this contest of whether you should have been doing this more readily before, or they should have been
That's
more.
not what I'm talking about.
No, but that's what I'm talking about, because
I think it's not related to it.
no, I think they are related, because you're saying that we should deny it just for purposes of you getting more time to do what you want to do.
Or perhaps that they have not yet proven to you that they absolutely need it.
But what is it?
There's
Is
no other way.
Is it time or is it proof? I mean,
It's proof.
I think from the legal perspective, they've made out a pretty decent case. They've been able to demonstrate that they can't necessarily comply with a couple of ordinances, one of which deals with the floodplain, the other of which deals with steep slopes. And those variances, I believe that they theoretically have made out a case. Now, whether they've met the burden is up to the board to decide.
Well, maybe that's what I meant, that I'm not sure, have they met the burden?
That's a fair comment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ronan, do you want to make a comment?
Not really. I wish David were here. He's a lot more eloquent.
But please introduce yourself to those that don't know who you are.
So let me get to the mic. Rowan Keenan. I represent Providence Place. We had a long night last month, and looks like there are a lot of people here, too, that want the mic. And you were absolutely correct that all of this was covered. I don't have my engineer here, but we proved through expert testimony that this property merits the variances requested and will comply with every single section and requirement of your zoning ordinance, the lengthy requirements for floodplain usage. And in fact, we submitted expert testimony that it will not affect any of the downstream properties. And I appreciate you giving me a moment here tonight. I mean, if David, though, were here, he would certainly want to listen to any new ideas, you know, David, and he would be more than willing to take into, if there is a good idea, he will want to use it. But that losing the lower level loses a lot more for us than just a basement. The loading docks are down there. The entire loading area is down there. Most of our the roundabout for emergency access to the entire rear of the building is right in the floodplain and will be lost in the event of a 100-year flood if that wall is not there. A lot more than just our basement area is lost. So.
Well, the other thing that you have to consider, of course, is if Mr. and Mrs. Costanza are affected by this, then your development or your facility will obviously be impacted, because they have already indicated that they're not going to sit idly by. So you folks have to make sure that you do what has to be done under the ordinance and probably beyond in order to make this whole thing work.
I know David's willing to go above and beyond.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We're going to take a short break and go in the back, and we'll be out momentarily. Okay, we're back in session. Thank you for that break. We will have a little bit of an explanation by Keith to bring everybody up to snuff on what's going on.
So on the Providence Place variance requests, the initial request was for an interpretation of Section 143-77. Sorry, Paula, I'll try and read slower. B4E. And the interpretation that the board has made is that excluding land subject to flooding or steep slopes in excess of 5%, at least 20% of the total area of the proposed site shall be dedicated to passive recreation, including but not limited to outdoor sitting areas, decks, patios, gazebos, picnic areas, and pedestrian walks, just to provide a few examples. So that's the interpretation of the ordinance. That was one of the questions, I believe, Ronan, that you folks had in your application. So that as the premise, we'll go to the merits of the variances that were requested, and the first one is 14377B4E, which is the same ordinance that was just interpreted. So, Mr. Pucci, you have a motion.
I do. As it pertains to the section 14377B4E, which is the variance to permit dedication of 10.34% of the total area to passive recreation rather than the 20%, I make a motion to approve.
Do we have a second on that?
I second.
Patty, call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
Mrs. Hager and Mr. Hart were not present when we discussed this, so they have abstained from the vote, and the first variance has been approved. Joe?
Okay, am I saying that correctly, Pete? The third issue before us, or just this, or our second variance?
Second variance, third item.
Okay, second variance, third item before us, 143-240A, prohibiting freestanding structures, buildings, and retaining walls in the steep slope conservation district. The variance to permit the construction of a retaining wall in the floodway and steep slopes district is granted. Or
You're making a motion to grant it.
we're making a motion to grant.
Any second on that?
Well, before you second, there's a provision in there about the conditions. Remember, we talked about that?
Yes, if granted, then subject to those conditions required under the floodplain ordinance as detailed in the written decision of the board
And steep slopes.
and steep slopes.
Any second on that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Abstained.
Again, the same reason. Patty, if you'll do the third one.
If the third variance, 86-401B, prohibiting placement of fill in the floodway, making a motion to grant the variance to permit placement of fill in the floodway.
Any second?
I'll second it.
Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Abstained.
Same reason. Okay, you have your first step. And to let the audience know, and especially the Costanzas, as I said before, this is a baby step, just the beginning. They have to go through many, many more things, government things, the Corps of Engineers, the historic. So there's many, many opportunities that you will have to go back and work on this. And thank you for your input. Okay, moving on to our next item. Joe, if you read that.
I sure will. The first hearing is Z-1703, Gravel Pike 50 LLC, located at 2620 Egypt Road, Audubon, PA, 19403. The applicant is requesting a variance from section 143-19B1 to permit a 30-foot by 33-foot detached private garage to be located within the front yard setback. The parcel ID of the subject property is 43-000-001-004. Subject property is located at 17 Heatherwood Hills Road, Audubon, PA, and is in the R2 residential zoning district.
Good evening, Bernadette. How are you?
Good evening, Mr. President. Good, thank you.
Do you have a client with you?
Yes,
Does that person wish to sit with you?
yes. Mr. Macy and Mr. Nielsen.
Get some chairs up there for them. I don't know, you can take this one because Mike's not going to have his girlfriend here tonight. Why don't you all shift down a little bit there, and then Bernadette can sit in that end chair. You guys just shift all the way down.
Good evening, Bernadette Carney here from Hanburg. Reuben here on behalf of the applicant, and I do have a exhibit booklet.
Thank you. You know the drill here, Bernadette, so the question really is whether you're going to upset the board like the previous applicant. I'm only kidding.
I'm going to have to chastise him if he keeps it up.
As Mr. McLennan had indicated, we're here for a dimensional variance to locate a detached garage in the, oh, I'm sorry. To locate a detached garage in the front yard. And I think Mr. Marinsky has put up the plan. As you can see, it truly is, and zoning lawyers can't often say this, but this truly is a uniquely shaped property.
They're all uniquely shaped.
As you can see, it's a flag lot. This is the driveway back, and this is the property. The shaded gray is the detached garage.
Looks like it should be characterized as an arrow lot almost.
Yeah, it's not a typical flag lot, but yes, the long pole and then almost somewhat of a triangle. And as you can see on the aerial, actually, I'm going to hand this down to Don, who actually lives at the property. You can see the house, yes, and the pool in the back. And Don, just show them the long driveway.
This is the driveway here.
So his house is it's set back and behind all the other houses on the road. So at this point, I don't know if you swear in both your witnesses at the same time?
We can if they're both going to testify, if you know that in advance, sure.
If Brad and Don will both testify.
Paul Bradford, Macy, M-A-C-Y.
Donald Joseph Nielsen, N-E-I, L-S-O-N.
And as part of the exhibit booklet, I did include the original zoning application as tab 1, the revised attachment to indicate that the detached garage is going to be 30 by 33, which is 990 square feet, is attached as tab 2. Mr. Marinsky's letter of December 21st, 2016, indicating that the detached garage cannot be located in the front yard, is tab 3. Tab 4 is the authorization letter from Mr. John T. Nielsen, president of Gravel Pike 50 LLC, who owns the property. Mr. Don Nielsen is the resident at the property who's going to testify. Tab 5 is Brad Macy's CV. Tab 6 is the tax map showing the property in red, highlighted in red. Tab 7 is an aerial, and we also have a larger aerial that we'll hand out to you, and a photo of the lane for the property. And tab 8 is the plan that was provided as part of the zoning application. Tab 9 is the elevation for the proposed garage. And tab 10 is, I asked Mr. Nielsen to obtain letters of support from his neighbors. So that's a list of the owners and tenants who signed the letters of support that are attached, and a tax map highlighted in yellow of those neighbors who provided the letters in support. And then behind the tax map are the actual letters. I don't know if the board is familiar with Mr. Macy, and if you need me to go through his credentials, or if you are familiar with him.
Regrettably, we're not.
Oh, okay.
Although he looks like an interesting fellow.
Okay. Brad, why don't you state your name and describe by whom you're employed and what you do.
My name is
Please
Excuse me.
pass
Oh, I'm
Mike.
sorry.
the mic, thank you.
Let me pass it over.
My name is Brad Macy, although my first name is Paul. That's my Catholic name. I use Brad. I'm employed by Audubon Land Development. As an employee of Audubon Land, I'm Vice President of Development, and I secure and work with the townships on getting approvals for the various projects that we're involved with. And I've been in front of Lower Providence Township Planning Board and supervisors on many occasions. I'm a licensed professional land surveyor. Some of the projects that I've worked on in this general area are the Oaks, shopping center and the Oaks interchange improvements recently completed a year or so ago. I did the BJ's in Oaks, the Expo Center, and I've been involved with Shenandoah from its inception back in the 90s, and I recently just completed Audubon Square 5.
And so recently, we've been in front of the Board of Supervisors for both Shenandoah and Audubon Square 5.
Yes. As far as attending other zoning hearing boards, I've been in front of Upper Providence, Lower Providence, Limerick, Perkiomen, Pottstown, and Collegeville. That's just what I can remember at the time.
And I'm sure your expertise is well known, and I certainly know of you. The question, of course, is what's his role going to be here with respect to an offer of proof? I mean, is he necessary?
Brad, can you describe what you did for the application?
I just prepared the plan.
The plan for the location of the garage.
Yes.
Correct.
Based upon information provided from recent surveys by Bursich Associates, I plotted the property, established the setbacks.
And I don't want to steal your thunder or Bernadette's thunder, but tell us why the garage has to go there and not on the other side.
That's a good question. I asked the same question, and do you want me to answer it, or do you want?
Go ahead.
There is already an attached garage with the house. If you're looking at the house straight ahead, there's attached garage on the right-hand side, and to move the house on the other side of the lot takes the garage away from the main entrance into the existing garage, and it takes away from the usable area on the left side of the property. If you were to squeeze the house into that area,
Well, you're talking about a house. What do you?
The garage.
You mean the garage, where you're going to locate the garage? Because you're not moving the house, right?
I'm not moving the house, but if I were to move the garage on the left side of the house, I'd be taken away from the usable play area, the yard area of the home. And
Right. I can see that.
The house is situated in such a way interiorly, hallways and doorways, such that the garage in the present location works far better than on the left side of the house, because there are no doorways on the left side of the house.
So the garage then is going to connect to the house ultimately, is what you're suggesting?
Well, it's not connecting to the house. It's a separate detached house, or garage, but it's
To gain access to the
gain
house from the
access.
garage, the doors are on that side as opposed to the left side if we're facing the house.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask, you said, I'm sorry, turn my own on. You said there's already a garage attached.
The garage is in the house, part of the
Right.
house, yes.
Is that going to remain
far
as a
I know
garage?
it is.
Okay. And is that a two-car garage?
Yes,
And you're going to add an additional garage that will also be a two-car?
I believe it'll hold more than, Don,
2 oversized cars at least.
Okay. Is there, and I'm not saying that there isn't a good reason for that, but is there a reason that you're expecting to need that many vehicles, or?
Yeah, Don, why don't you explain who lives at the property and why you wanted the detached garage?
And I apologize if we're kind of jumping right
Yeah,
ahead here.
I started this
yeah.
cavalcade, so I apologize. Do your thing, we'll shut up.
So yes, there's 2 car attached garage that currently I don't keep a car in. We have 3 vehicles at the house. It's myself, my wife, and my daughter. We're just starting off family, so it's more space is expected in the future. And so I'd like to be able to have my wife park her car in the garage, as well as the third vehicle that we use in the garage, and then I have a truck that would also fit in this garage, the new garage, as proposed. Any other questions?
Is this a,
I was just going to, and I'm not even sure that this is on your property, but there appears to be 2, are they Quonset hut type garages already off to the left as you go up the driveway?
There are 2 sheds.
Sheds?
Yes.
They look large enough to be used as a garage. Will those stay, or are they?
They don't have to stay. They're, I have them filled right now, but I will be able to move most of that stuff into the new garage, and so they could be.
But they're being used really as sheds rather than garages right now.
Yeah, you can't fit a vehicle in.
You don't have a car in there right now,
Yeah,
okay.
like 4-wheeler, lawn care equipment, that kind of stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Plow for the driveway.
Is the current garage front entrance or side entrance?
Front.
So you don't really need to have additional macadam?
No, there would be no more macadam. And that's the point with going with this side of the house versus the other side. The left side of the house would be no other macadam necessary. On the left side of the house, there's also the pool equipment, the air conditioner, the deck. It just kind of makes it, I think, more costly and inconvenient.
And will the garage have electricity and water,
Yes.
heat,
Yes.
second floor?
Yes. For
Do-
unfinished storage.
Okay. That's all I have at the moment.
But go back on track, Ms. Kearney, go ahead.
You did half your job, you mean?
Yes.
Good, okay.
I was going to have Don explain what the garage is proposed for. And Don, why don't you explain what your proposal is for what the garage will look like?
It'd be, block base, poured concrete floor, and, siding to match the house.
And-
The siding on the house is roughly about 2 years old, so it would be easy to get a, pretty close match, if not exact.
And the was part of the exhibit book. You had gone out to your neighbors and asked for letters of support, correct?
That's correct.
And those are part of the exhibit booklet that we prepared and gave to the zoning hearing board. And also, as part of that, you provided the elevation of the garage, which is tab 9, correct?
Yes.
I think that's all the questions I had of Don, unless somebody else had further questions. Ms. Eske covered most of them.
I just had a couple of questions. Is the property in a flood zone of any kind? Any kind of flooding issues, anything of that nature with the property right now?
No, it's up high, higher elevation, I guess.
And then just a question about the sheds that you had brought up. I mean, what kind of condition are they in now? Are they in a kind of condition that they would need to be removed? Are they in okay?
No, they're in good condition.
Good condition. Okay.
Any other questions from the board?
Would there be any type of, you mentioned there'd be water in the new garage, and I can certainly understand that, but there wouldn't be any bathroom facilities, there wouldn't be any cooking facilities. This is not going to, down the road, turn into some type of living space.
No, never be a living space.
Okay.
And actually, Don, I wanted to ask you where your house is located and the houses in front of you what are you looking at? The front of your house looking at? The back of their houses, correct?
Yeah, look at the back of their houses. The neighbor to the right on the screen, he has an 8-foot privacy fence and also a shed that's right on the property line. And he's downhill from me, so I think the view for him will be just the top of the roof of the new garage.
Are there any questions from the audience?
Can I just ask one more quick question?
Sure.
And that's only in that, I'm just looking briefly at the names that you've listed, and that's great when you've gone out and talked to the neighbors and gotten.
But they're all
letters of
related.
support. Well, there seem to be a lot of them that are. But I noticed that the couple that's right in front, if they're the Delphas,
Yes.
did not seem to sign that. And they're really the ones that are mostly affected by this.
Yeah,
Did-
so I went and talked to Mr. and Mrs. Delpha, explained to what we wanted to do. They didn't really have any objections. They were well aware of the meeting tonight, and from what I saw earlier, they were not here. So
Okay.
they seemed to support it, just not with the signature.
How high do you think, and I know that's tough, I've been there and I've looked up there, and of course in the winter there's no leaves on the trees, but there is that high fence, but how high above that would
Of his fence?
above that fence in the back would the garage come up?
His is a 8-foot privacy fence. The garage, it's not completely designed, but 20 to 24 feet max height. And with the incline, you're sitting down on his porch, you'd probably only see the the top of the roof.
That's what I was wondering, if anybody had ever kind of plotted that out to see, because you wouldn't see all of it, that's for sure, down at the bottom. Okay,
And there's
thank you.
trees there. Some of them are in bad shape. They've been grown by ivy, so might have to remove some, but we'd like to keep some privacy trees there as well.
Now we are going to make you work, Bernadette. Can you give us more on the hardship? What's the hardship? I mean, obviously, it's a dimensional variance, so it's not as rigorous, but it's still, we have to meet the test, so.
And actually, I wanted to ask Brad one more question. Brad, why can't you locate it, the detached garage in the rear yard?
There's a swimming pool in the rear.
So there's no room to locate the detached garage in the rear yard, correct? So basically, yes, as Mr. McLennan had indicated, the reason for the requested dimensional variance is because of the uniquely shaped property and the existing pool. We really can't locate that garage in the rear yard. And the only place that it really makes sense, because we looked at the other side of the property where it could fit, and it didn't really make sense there. We're trying to not create more impervious coverage. So this is the location that makes the most sense. So what we're asking for is a reasonable adjustment of the code, recognizing that this is a truly uniquely shaped property, and when you look at the building envelope, we really can't locate it anywhere else but where it's located.
Isn't there already some blacktop or macadam trailing off to the left as you go up the driveway?
That's a small, narrow access to the property behind me.
It's not your access?
It is. It's access to the sheds, and then it also goes back to and it turns on to just stone as it accesses the other.
So
it's only paved for a short distance.
Right, so when you come up the driveway and you get to the arrowhead, if you will, and you make a left, there's a little bit of macadam that goes to the left, and then the sheds are over there to the left, is that right?
And then it turns into stone. They're right on the property line. The proposed garage is using the 20-foot setbacks. I think that's correct, Brad.
Yeah, are you compliant with the setbacks otherwise?
They're 20 feet.
Yes.
I think so.
And you can't squeeze it into that little triangle that's right next to the house there on the right. And the installation of the pool is not self-induced hardship, Bernadette, is that right?
That's correct.
It's been there from before.
That's correct.
I can't even remember how long it's been there.
Well before me.
But I'm having a bit of a problem understanding what the need is. Not that we're here to judge that per se, but it goes to the issue of the hardship.
Right. And what Don was explaining was, as you can see that long driveway, he has the larger truck that, has the snowplow that does the larger driveway. And
I have recreational vehicles, also a mower for the property, all that.
But you probably understand that a recreational vehicle is sort of a luxury good. It's fun. It's not really a necessity. The question that I think, Bernadette, you just raised is probably a necessity, which is in order to plow, you need a truck. In order to have a truck, you need a place to put it, is I presume what you're suggesting.
yes. And obviously the household storage and the storage from the pool would be also located in there.
Outdoor furniture in the
Outdoor
winter.
furniture, things of that nature, just to make the property neater, so that all the stuff's not outside.
Often we'll get people who come before because they wanted an additional garage, and the question often is, well, what do you need it for? Because otherwise we'll just have garages wherever we go because we have a lot of stuff. We Americans collect stuff. So is there a need for this garage is the real issue that goes to the concept of hardship. And that's for the board to decide, but that's why I asked the question. So if there's anything else that you want to talk about on that issue.
And it is a permitted accessory use on a property that you can have a detached garage. Our argument is we have a permitted accessory structure. We just can't locate it outside the front yard on this property because it's truly uniquely shaped. And when you look at the building envelope, I mean, there's not a lot of room to place this shed in the building envelope because of the way it's triangularly shaped. So because it's a permitted accessory use and he is using it to store normal household items and the truck that does the plowing of that long lane, I think it makes sense.
Right, in order to avoid a conflict in the future, because obviously a lot of the surrounding properties are somewhat passive when it comes to this for a sort of benign term. But the question is the vegetation that exists there now, because you might guess that we don't like to have garages in front yards. Now, your property is unique in the sense that it's not like your front yard is right on the street, that we would be looking at this garage.
Correct.
So that's a good thing in your favor from that perspective. But the question then is, what happens when the property ownership changes? When somebody comes in there who may not be as favorable to this? The dense vegetation that's there, what is it comprised of? Is it just trees? Is it bushes? Is it a combination?
Yeah, it's trees and overgrown bushes and stuff, yeah.
And is there any screening that you could put there that would necessarily negate a view of that garage to a certain extent, other than what's already there?
It's pretty much already in place, but we could do additional if that's, asked. And, I think the neighbors didn't come, and they supported the project, so I think they're okay with that, how it sits.
Well, that's right. Now that's the case, but properties turn over, and then what happens? People get into a fight over it, and then before you know it, they're at Mike's door saying, hey, can you do something about these people who have this crazy garage in their front yard? That's the kind of thing that we worry about. But if there's a approval of it, that's certainly his political cover, but the question is, how do we avoid that? And I'm just trying to think out loud with you about what ways we can do that.
We can certainly clean up the vegetation that's there, the trees that are there, clean out the trees, plant some evergreen trees in and around the existing trees that are there.
And you have no objection to that?
No.
I toss it out there for the board. I'm not the decision maker here. Or as George Bush said, I'm not the decider. Historical.
Can I go back, and I'm probably beating a dead horse here, although why anybody would do that, I don't know. Go back to the sheds, and again, I don't know how large they are. I don't know. To me, they're large enough. They look large enough to almost kind of be your accessory building already, your garage, if you will, even though they're not being used for that. You know that when you build a new garage, that's going to be your auxiliary building, and you'll still be entitled to have a shed, but there will be dimensional limits on that, and it will have to, fit in the yard, in the prescribed side yard and rear yard variances, front yard variances, so which are pretty minor for sheds, but still, I think that just looking at those will not qualify. I'm just throwing that out. That.
Okay, if that's a requirement, then, after it's built, I'll be able to do whatever you guys would like.
Okay.
Excuse me, can I see, where is the shed on that picture? Can you show me where those sheds are?
They're probably just off the side, right at the edge of the property on this, right along the
And there are two of them.
Yeah, they'd be hidden by the trees here.
You're only allowed to have one.
There you can just see the corner.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Anything else? Anybody? Anything from the audience? Take a few minutes. Ready?
We'll go to executive session, you
Yep.
say?
We're going to take a few minutes, make a decision. We'll be back. Okay, we're back. We've had our discussion, and I will ask Mr. Hart to make his motion.
Madam Chairwoman, I move that we approve the applicant's request for a variance from 143-19B1 to permit a 30 by 33-foot detached garage with the condition that other structures on the property conform with the provisions of Chapter 143.27.
Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You're granted.
Thank you.
Have fun. Joe B., do you want to read the next application?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm kind of out of sorts here for a second. Okay, this is application Z-17-04- Michael and Kelly Kostick. Am I saying that correctly? Costick. 1074 North Academy Avenue, Glen Olden, PA 19036. The applicant is requesting a variance from section 143-33A1 and A2A6, dimensional variance from the lot area, lot width, front side, and rear yard setbacks to permit combination of 3 legal non-conforming lots and the construction of a single-family dwelling. The parcel ID number of the subject properties are 43-00-03145-001, 43-00-03742-004, and 43-00-03737-007. Subject parcel is located at Washington Boulevard and Elizabeth Street, Phoenixville, and is in the R1 Residential Zoning District.
Do we have someone here representing the applicant?
Good evening, Madam Chairman. My name is Lee Stiebel. Supreme Court identification 46511. Seated to my left is Mr. and Mrs. Costick. They are the equitable owners of the subject properties. Seated to my far left is Michael Sioko, who is a professional engineer licensed in Pennsylvania. Just by way of introduction, we have an aggregation of 3 lots. If you drive down Wilson Road until you hit Teresa, you make a right onto Teresa, and it dead ends at Washington. There's a small paper street called Washington. And in the back there are 3 lots behind the homes on Teresa. And in the aggregate, there's like, Mike, I guess they're about a half acre in aggregate.
A little more, 3/4.
3/4 of an acre. We're under agreement on those lots, and we intend to develop those 3 lots for a single-family home. By way of exhibits, I have a copy of the appeal marked A1 for identification, the agreement of sale marked A2 for identification, a letter from Walter and Dawn Golas, which they are here in the audience this evening. They are the legal owner. That's A3 for identification. I have a copy of the plot plan marked A4 for identification. That was also submitted with the application. I have the CV of Michael Sioko as A6, and A5 are a couple of the deeds in aggregate for those 3 lots. Can I have Mr. Costick and Michael Sioko sworn in, please?
Michael Sioko, CIO, CCO.
Michael Costick, KOSTYK.
I do.
Lee, before you start, what did you say A3 was?
A3 is a letter signifying permission and consent from the legal owner that we proceed.
Oh, okay.
How about I hand these exhibit package to the court reporter and have her mark them? Or initial them? I'm just going to record.
Do you have copies of any of those things for us?
I do.
Thank you.
You can just we'll mark them. She doesn't have to do that.
I'll hand them out as we get to each one. Mr. Costick? How are you?
I am well.
Very well. Is this your first time to testify before a board?
Please pull
Yeah,
the
the
microphone
microphone.
over.
Yeah,
Thank
sorry.
you.
Yes.
Okay. What is your relationship to the subject property that we're here tonight?
Me and my wife would like to purchase the property to build our family home.
And did you file an application this evening?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked A1 for identification.
Thanks.
What is A1 for identification?
You already have that.
That's your application, right?
Yes, this is my application.
And are you under agreement to buy the property with Mr. and Mrs. Golas?
Yes.
Got another one?
I'm going to show you A2 for
It's in
identification.
your file.
This is the same.
Yes. Thank you.
Is A2 an accurate copy of the agreement?
Yes.
That people do not have.
Could you kindly tell the board what you intend to do, how you intend to site the home on the property?
Just wanted to make sure it was there.
We plan to build the home on the property facing Washington Boulevard. So we would come in off the paper street, have a driveway off the paper street, Washington. Here's the paper street. We plan on having the home built in this area here, with this being a backyard and a front yard. There will be, we'll repair and replace a privacy fence around the property. A4 is the plot plan for the proposed home.
And the plot plan shows the orientation of the proposed home to the three paper streets being Washington, Lincoln, and I believe Elizabeth.
Correct.
And am I correct that the home would face onto Washington?
Correct.
And what is the condition of
Can't really see that
Washington
one.
Road right now?
It's this.
As you can see here, part of Washington is macadam down to, there's a gate, a fenced gate that enters the property in this area here, and it's paved to there. And then this is all woods
What you're pointing
surrounding.
to is a portion of the paper street called Washington,
Correct.
and approximately 100 feet or so of Washington is paved for a driveway,
Correct.
and that serves a house to the left, or I would say the west of your property.
Correct.
And would you intend to use Washington as your sole source of egress and ingress to the property?
Yes.
Would you have any intent of opening up either of the paper streets that are identified on the plan, being Elizabeth or Lincoln Avenue?
No.
And I believe that you expressed that the easterly side of the property would be your rear yard?
Correct.
Okay. And the northerly side of the property, contiguous to Elizabeth Street, would be a side yard?
Correct.
Okay. And how would your garage be situate to handle cars?
Exactly the question we're looking for. Direct examination.
Yes.
I'm letting you go on your cross because you're leading the witness, but that's okay. We'll speed it up that way. But
It's my first time.
just tell us the story.
Okay, so the garage will be on the side of the home. It would load.
It's a side load?
Side load garage.
Okay.
Um,
And as part of your development process, do you have intent to take down any trees, do any planting, preserve any trees?
We plan on keeping, at some point, I'm not sure when, but there were small trees planted around the perimeter of the property. Those will stay. Any trees in the vicinity where the home will be placed will be removed, and a few of the couple trees in the front yard will be removed.
Can you tell the board a little bit about the home itself, the size, number of bedrooms?
It'll be a 3-bedroom, 2-story home. I believe 2.5 bath.
Would the size of the home be consistent in character with the homes that are situated around that property on Teresa and along Washington?
Yes, it's going to be, I think, 2,500 square feet, including the garage.
And is that consistent with the homes in the neighborhood?
Yes.
Have you picked out siding yet?
Not the color, but the style. Yes.
Okay. What type of materials are you going to use?
It'll be vinyl siding that looks like shake, and portions of the front facade will have brick.
That's all the questions I have for Mr. Costa.
Any questions from the board? Your application said there's public water, public sewer? Is
Yes.
that correct?
Correct.
You've talked with the water company, you've talked with the sewer department to get permits?
Mike?
Is that for your testimony? Were you going to testify to that?
Yeah, I have not contacted.
Could you please use the microphone so we can pick that up? Thank you.
We would certainly contact them if we were successful tonight with the variances.
So you haven't
requested.
secured those permits?
Not yet, but we certainly would. do
What
that.
about all the other houses in the area? Are they public sewer and
I
water?
believe that there's public sewer on Teresa Street, so I would assume that they're tied in. But there's sewer there. There's a pump station right at the end of Teresa Street.
That's quite a big item if you can't get into the public sewer system. Yeah, I know.
Well, we would submit that we would submit for any and all other third-party permits if we were successful tonight.
Okay.
With the variances that are required.
And then it shows on the plan sheds? Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, there are existing sheds on the property that would be removed, and then there's one accessory shed that Mr. Costick would like to have in the rear yard that would meet the setbacks.
So on the plan, which sheds are what?
You have the pointer? So, are you able to see this plan over here?
Not so well.
That plan has been distributed.
It's one that you submitted earlier,
Yes.
I presume, in one of the
Yes.
larger
Yeah,
versions,
the
because the
yes.
little one is hard to see for the old eyes that were up here, so.
So on the
You're looking for trouble, Keith.
on the northern side of the property, close to Elizabeth Street, there's a shed there that will be removed. It's proposed to be removed, and then in the southeasterly corner, closer to Lincoln Avenue, near the what I'm calling, I guess the side property line there. There's a small shed there that will be removed as well, and then directly behind the proposed house, in the rear yard, Mr. Costick is proposing a new shed that would meet all of the setback requirements.
Okay, because we just did sheds and sheds. You're really only allowed one shed on the property, so the others you're going to remove.
Correct.
Okay.
And they're noted on the plan. It may be hard to see, but it says TBR, which means to be removed. In the legend, it says, TBR means to be removed. So those would be removed. They're proposed to be removed. You'd only have one shed remaining as a new shed on the property.
Good, thank you. Anyone else have questions?
So we don't have people in the audience that are worried about their shed being removed, do they?
Everybody rush home.
Can you describe for me the parcels that you are going to be combining on that aerial to make up the property that's going to be your new home?
Mr. McKenna, should I qualify Mike first in his expert capacity as a professional?
Well,
engineer?
yes, you should, but this is really a factual question that
Sure.
doesn't necessarily go to your expertise, but you can certainly do it now if you'd like.
Okay. If we have no more questions.
Maybe the homeowner can answer that question. Do you know what parcels are being utilized
That
for the
would be
home?
Mike.
Okay, he knows that better? Okay, fine. Any other questions, I'm sorry, of this witness? Does anybody, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, we may. I mean, I think we may want to go back and discuss this further. I'm not really aware of any specific issues with there, but it seems to me that I've heard over the years there are issues with pumping the sewage from that area. It may not be as cut and dried as you might think, and that's just hearsay I've heard from being in the township for years. So, connecting with the water and the sewage may not necessarily be, just filling out an application and getting it approved. I'm just giving you a heads up on that. Now, getting back to the property itself, if I can, before we move on, can you describe, I see on here the location of the house, but I'm not quite clear as to what you're calling the front yard, what you're calling the backyard, and the setbacks, and...
Should I move from the...
Anybody can answer this question. I don't,
We are jumping back and forth,
Yeah.
but
If he can answer it, fine. If he can't, then we'll move on to the next witness.
I was going to go through that with Mr. Sioko, but can we get through the homeowner, and then we can move in an orderly
Okay.
fashion to qualify Mike?
Okay.
And go through these questions?
Right, do we have any more for the homeowner? Anybody from the audience have, there's a couple questions coming, and this is from the homeowner? You wanna-
For Mr. Costick?
No,
No?
yeah, the lady, come on up.
So, Denise Campana, 35 Wilson Boulevard, Campana. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time, but it is for the homeowner. So one of the things that we need to establish here is hardship. So is it appropriate at this time to ask questions regarding the hardship he's claiming?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, right. So they haven't finished their case yet, so you can certainly do it at that point in time and raise that issue if you'd like. Unless you have questions for the witness, you can certainly ask the witness questions, not what's your hardship, but factual questions about where he's placing it or whatever it is that you need to have answers to.
Okay, thank you. So we're talking about front yards, backyards, side yards. We obviously can't see the plan from where we're sitting, so I'd like to know how many feet are you talking about?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I think your questions are a little premature.
Okay.
So if you wait till they finish with their engineer, he may answer some of your questions. And if not, then you'll have another opportunity to come up and ask questions.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Just for
So-
clarification, you're on the home on the right-hand side of the farmhouse?
Yes.
Thanks.
We also own adjoining property.
Yes, I see the remnants and all, yes.
So were there any definite questions just for the homeowner concerning the house? Okay, if we can move on then to your engineer.
Thank you. Mr. Siocco,
Shift the microphone, would you please?
what is your profession, sir?
I'm a professional engineer with Catania Engineering Associates, located in Millmont Park, PA, Delaware County.
And where did you go to college, sir?
Villanova University, bachelor's in civil engineering.
And you're licensed in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania as a civil engineer?
Yes, I am.
Are you licensed in any other states as a civil engineer?
Just Pennsylvania.
Just Pennsylvania. And you've been licensed since what year?
2001.
And since 2001, have you had opportunity to perform subdivision land development work,
Yes.
construction of homes,
Hundreds, if not thousands.
if not thousands? Do you act as a municipal solicitor for engineering purposes?
A municipal engineer.
Yes.
Yes, I'm the municipal engineer in Thornbury Township, Delaware County, the alternate engineer in Chester Heights Borough, Delaware County, sewage enforcement officer in Chester Heights Borough, Delaware County for septic systems.
And you perform engineering for the layout of properties with regard to improvements, including structures and homes and retaining walls and floodplains and things like that?
Correct.
As part of your responsibilities as a professional engineer, do you take into account the impact of proposed development upon the features of land, including slopes and open space?
Of course, yes, I do.
Do you have experience in the arrangement and orientation of structures and improvements to minimize the impact upon the ground?
Yes, I do.
And do you account for methods of design to control and minimize the impact of erosion sedimentation?
Yes, I do.
And when you perform development work on behalf of your clients and on behalf of your municipal clients, do you take into account the intensity of uses on the ground?
Yes, I do.
Which would include open space, air, light, traffic, ingress and egress?
That is correct.
Okay. Have you been admitted as an expert before other municipal bodies such as this zoning hearing board or in the courts of common pleas?
Yes, most municipalities in Delaware County, Montgomery County, I've been in Lower Marion, admitted, Delaware County District Court.
At this time, subject to a question by the board, I would request that Mr. Sioko be admitted as an expert professional engineer trained in the civil area with specific.
Any questions?
Nope. Works.
Anyone from the audience want to question the witness's expertise? Seeing none, he's accepted as an expert in his field of expertise.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll get down to nuts and bolts now. Thank you. Mr. Sioko, could you describe the subject property for us?
Yes, the property is approximately 37,000 square foot gross total parcel when all three lots are combined. There's three separate parcels that were originally carved out back in 1918. Those parcels are all existing non-conforming in size. We were proposing to combine the three parcels into one larger parcel in an effort to try and meet zoning as much as we can and minimize the amount of variance requested. The existing lot area, or the proposed lot, or excuse me, the required lot area for the R1 zoning district, which it's in, is 65,000 square feet, and we are only able to, combining all of those parcels, we are only coming up with 37,487 square feet, which is one of the reasons we're here tonight.
Mr. Sioko.
Yes.
None of the three parcels equals the R1 district of 65,000 feet, correct?
Correct.
And in aggregate, all three do not, correct?
Correct.
Is there any ability by this applicant to pick up additional area of ground, including other parcels, to further aggregate to minimize or lessen the variance requested?
No, he's surrounded actually by, to the, I guess, southwest, looking on the aerial map, there's existing developed homes. And on the other sides of the property, other three sides of the property, he's surrounded by paper streets. So he did combine all of the parcels that he was able to in order to try and meet the requirement as much as he could.
Thank you. Can you just take a moment and describe the natural features of the property?
Sure. So the property slopes basically from the northwesterly side corner to the southwesterly corner of the property. It's moderately sloping, approximately 4, 5, 6% in that matter. There are some trees towards the front of the property and around the perimeter of the property. There is a good amount of it that is actually grass, maintained lawn. And the sheds we were talking about before can be seen on the aerial view. The one is up by the side of Elizabeth Street. And there's another shed along the side property line in the southwest corner of the property. Those two, as I mentioned before, will be removed.
Are there any topographical features that are regulated under the zoning ordinance on this property, such as steep slope?
There are no steep slopes on this property.
Are there any streams on this property?
No, there's not.
Okay. Could you take a moment for the board and describe the orientation of the home and the dimensional provisions being made for the proposed home relative to the out boundary of this property?
Sure. So the proposed house is proposed to face Washington Boulevard. The driveway will come out on the southwesterly side of the house. It's a side-load garage. The driveway would go out to the paved portion of Washington Boulevard and connect that way down, down to Teresa Street. The house facing Washington Boulevard makes the rear yard, most of this grass area behind to the south. And this being on, well, I guess would be a corner lot in this situation. Or actually, it's surrounded by three sides with streets and rights of way. We have a front yard that we are providing at 50 feet, which is what's required off of Washington Boulevard. But off of Elizabeth Street, we can only provide 30 feet.
And you would consider the yard on the Elizabeth side is a front yard because it would be a corner lot?
Yes.
Okay.
And then for what we would consider the side yard, the house would be 37 feet from this side property line. And then to the rear, we're not asking for any relief on that. We are 208 feet from Lincoln Avenue to the house.
Now, if you were to orient this house with the front of the house situate facing Elizabeth Street, would you require more or less variances?
Well, I believe if we faced Elizabeth Street, then we would need a rear yard variance. So we have to add in the rear yard variance for that.
So we would need more variances.
Yes.
Okay. Now, sir, these lots are not compliant in terms of area. Was this hardship self-created?
No, as I had mentioned in my brief introduction before, these lots were created back in 1918. There are 3 parcels, and they're labeled on the exhibit you have there. Parcel 1 is approximately 5,000 square feet. Parcel 2 is approximately 17,000 square feet. Parcel 3 is approximately 15,000 square feet. And when you add those all together, you get 37,487 square feet. And if you look just at the homes to the southwest of this property, you can see that those homes are all on much smaller lots than this 37,000 square feet. You know, we will have this entire area, which is mirrored back on Teresa Street with, oops, oh, there's the plan.
Good.
So there's 4 houses that front on Teresa Street in that same basic area, in that same basically 37,000 square feet. So we're only proposing to place 1 house where right behind us there are 4 houses.
I like the other image, Mike.
Yeah, can you go back to that, because I get questions.
Mr. Sioka, will the grant of these dimensional variances alter the character of the neighborhood, impair the appropriate use of adjacent property, or in any way be detrimental to the public health and welfare?
No, as I stated, here's the 4 houses I was describing. So, there's 4 homes, to the southwest of us in the same amount of area where we're proposing to place just a single home. So, in fact, it's much less dense than the actual neighborhood itself.
Okay. Is the use variance, are these dimensional variances being requested the minimum necessary to afford reasonable relief in this matter?
Yes, they are.
And would that be based upon the location of the property relative to the paper streets?
Yeah, there's really, you really can't meet all of the setbacks just in being that it creates such a narrow building setback right down the center of the property, and you really can't fit a typical house of today's standards in that area. And I think we've done the best we could to try to minimize the amount of relief requested by trying to place all of these parcels together. We basically tried to situate the house in the middle of the lot, and put it, meet the front yard setback off of Washington Street. We do have that. It still gives him a nice rear yard, which we would meet.
Okay.
So,
are the conditions which you are confronted based on the size of the lot and the orientation of the lot conditions which are unique to the subject property?
Yes, it's an existing, basically they're existing non-conforming lots.
Will the grant of these dimensional variances in any manner increase the danger of fire or otherwise endanger public safety?
No, again, it's actually making a less dense development of those parcels.
And I take it you would have the same answer with Would the grant of the dimensional variance in any manner create an undue concentration of population or structures?
No, again, less dense.
Will the
with that.
grant of these dimensional variants not impair the adequate supply of light or air to adjacent properties?
It would not adversely affect it.
Okay. Would the grant of the dimensional variances in any manner adversely affect transportation or unduly burden water, sewer, school, park, or other public facilities?
No, I don't believe so.
Will the grant of the dimensional variance be in harmony with the spirit of the zoning ordinance and the existing development in the area?
Yes.
That's all I have for this witness. Thank you.
Michael, can you show us again, where is Washington Street?
So Washington Street is on the northwesterly side of the property,
And at this point,
and this is Teresa Street here.
but Washington is not paved back to this property?
It's paved. You can see right here. It's paved right to the edge of the property.
And then what about Lincoln Street?
Lincoln Street is not. You can see right here.
Right?
It's basically grass and trees.
And Elizabeth is not
It's the same
paved.
thing. You can see right here. It's basically grass and trees.
So will Washington Street have to be extended to accommodate this property?
We're basically proposing to just have the driveway come out and connect to the paved area of Washington Street.
Madam Chairman, this is more of a legal issue with the township when we go through building permits.
Yes,
These are
I
what we call-
realize that, but
These are
there-
what we call paper streets.
I realize that.
And in paper streets, we have a private right, as do all the other homes that were developed in concert in 1918, to have a private right of ingress and egress over these streets. What we propose to do is coordinate with the gentleman across the way in terms of providing access over that area. We'll work with Mike from the township and get a good plan and resolution for that. We don't plan to open up or do anything with regard to the other paper streets, being Lincoln and Elizabeth.
Right.
Just leave them in their natural state, or semi-occupied state, should I say.
Can I ask a question of our Mike? Mike, is Washington Township operated? Is that plowed? Is that maintained?
Dedicated to the township.
Dedicated, just that little short paved area? Or is that privately owned that the two houses that are there have done? And you may not know the answer. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but.
I don't know for sure. No, I don't know.
In my review of the title, I've not seen any offer of dedication. Matter of fact, back in 1918, we never had real formal offers of dedication. It was dedication by assumption and use and possession. So these are, in fact, paper streets. And for your solicitor, one of the lead cases in that is POTIS, P-O-T-I-S. It's a Pocono case dealing with paper streets and the rights of private persons in the subdivision.
Well, that's my question. That was what I was going to get to in terms of the paper street. So what's the significance of the paper street other than it provides you with barriers or boundaries upon which you measure your setbacks? There's no other real significance except that you need to get access to your property from Washington. But Elizabeth doesn't matter, Lincoln doesn't matter necessarily, except it boxes you in, I presume.
It technically does. We will not own and fee those paper streets. Now, someone could, and I know that there is some use from contiguous property owners of the Lincoln Street paper street. Well, after 21 years, if you use it adverse to other private users, if you fence it in, if you put a pool on it, it's yours. So, but everyone in that subdivision in 1918, now if you're a property owner in that subdivision, you have a right to traverse those paper streets. Private right, not a public right.
The parcels that are noted there, where the property starts right by Washington and they cascade down. So those are the three parcels that have circles on them there now. Mr. Engineer, see those that I'm talking about? Yeah, those three.
Yes.
And now it seems to me that each dot represents a certain parcel, correct? White dot?
Well, Yeah, I'm not sure where that came from. From what we have, we had 3 separate deeds, and the 3 separate deeds described 3 separate parcels that we show on our plan.
Can you show me that, though, on that parcel, on that aerial?
Sure. So it would appear that parcel 1 goes around this,
Right.
this labeled as 0.
Right.
And parcel 2 would appear to be the aggregate of these 3. I'm just going by kind of
Mr.
eyeball.
Solicitor, actually, I have deeds in package marked A5, which are copies of the deeds of record, but they're not certified from the recorder of deeds. Actually, one of them is not even executed. They, in fact, conveyed multiple lots. The first deed conveyed lots 10 and 15. The next one conveyed lots 1 and 2. So those 5 lots were conveyed in 3 deeds to the current owner.
So what?
Well, each deed, in other words, I guess what I'm saying is each deed, like one deed describes this single parcel.
Right.
Another deed describes these 3 parcels.
Okay, in one.
In
Right.
one. And then
Okay.
another deed describes these 2 on the
So
end.
that whole, so there's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dots there?
6, I think.
Yeah, 6, yes.
All that is the parcel that we're talking about
That
that
is
ultimately
correct.
they're going to buy?
That is correct. So it's entirely surrounded by these paper streets, if you can see those lines on this aerial view.
Do you have a different plot that you can put up?
Well, that demonstrates it pretty well, it
I mean, our
seems to me.
plan shows it as well, if you...
And the front of your property is going to be on Elizabeth, you said, right?
Washington.
Washington. So the house is going to face Washington, just like the house across Washington faces Washington. We're going to face Washington.
And then the garage is going to be to
It'll
the
be to the side,
right.
to the
front
southwest.
entrance or side entrance?
It is a side load garage. So you would come in, turn to the right, and then make a left turn into your garage.
Yeah, I saw that.
The driveway will be off of Washington, because that's where the paved.
Right.
Yes.
Does the house on the left of Washington there, is the driveway to that house, does the driveway to that feed into what is paved of Washington, and then it thus feeds into Teresa? Is that how it goes?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
You can see the driveway here in black for the house across Washington. It comes down and does tie into Teresa. There's actually like a kind of a little turnaround area. I guess if you're backing out of here, you can back into this little turnaround and go straight out. Go out front ways.
Mike, do you know how old that house is, labeled 55?
It appears fairly new construction, maybe in the last 5 years, would be my guess.
Any other questions from the board? Questions from the audience? Gentleman in the back?
Come on up.
You
Got
need
it.
to
Come on up.
and give your
Don't be
name.
shy.
Who are these questions for, the expert?
Yes.
And just introduce yourself, if you would, for the
My
record.
name's William
please.
Bailey.
What?
Bailey. I live in the house 3431 Teresa Street. That house 55 is almost 15 years old, not 5. My question is, them lots there, why would you build a house on the bottom? Do you have any idea what that ground contains of down there? What the ground is? Shale? There's no runoff. All the water stays on top and runs. Why would you even think of putting a house at the bottom of it?
I mean, it has the closest location to where we can gain access.
And that location blocks my view of the woods. I don't see a hardship here, and I don't know if this is the person that asked for a hardship. All I see this variance
No,
is
that
for.
would be your statement at the end. Certainly, you can make it. If you have questions, though, and the question that you raised about the shale issue, I'm not so sure it's a zoning issue. Is the only question. That's really a builder's issue, it seems to me. But anyway,
And that the township does not take ownership of Washington Street.
It's a private street.
That was paid privately, and they
Well-
do not take ownership of it.
That's testimony, which means you have to be sworn in to testify when you testify on the record, unfortunately. But if you have questions, you can ask the questions, and at the end, you can come up and testify if you'd like.
Okay, I'll go further at the end then.
Okay, great, thanks.
Could you just point out your house?
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Could you just point out your house?
Is it this one?
Yes, right there, 34.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anyone else have questions?
For you, I have a question about the properties that are listed. I think you've got a partial ID wrong on this notice. I don't think it's 3145. I think it should be 37, like the others. I just want to clarify and make sure that we're looking at the correct parcels.
Why don't you just show her what parcels you're talking about as opposed to the numbers?
Well,
Yeah,
I
the
see them on
numbers-
the map, but I think they're,
Well, that's a housekeeping thing. I think you folks have to make sure you get addressed is all if you have that
it
issue.
says Phoenixville. We're in Eagleville.
Right, I saw that on the map too, but.
To further ask about the shale, you're asking for basically impervious cover, a variance for impervious cover. Is that correct?
No, we're not asking for any variances on building coverage nor impervious coverage.
So do you have any information on how runoff might impact the neighboring homes?
Well, we would do the stormwater management that's required by the township
By the
code.
township.
So, the stormwater management required is that you reduce the amount of runoff coming from the site so that it does not affect the neighbors.
I'm aware. I'm just asking if you've looked at that. Do you know what that means? Do you know what's entailed with that at this time?
Well, I haven't gone through any of the calculations at this point, but I've done hundreds of these. There are ways that you can obviously perform stormwater management, design stormwater management facilities to handle stormwater runoff from new impervious surfaces.
Okay. What's the current use of the property?
Right now, it's just lawn with some accessory structures on it.
So it's someone's backyard, basically?
It's fenced in.
Right, so someone's backyard.
Well, it appears that someone's maintaining it, yes.
Okay, so what you're proposing is to build a home on what is currently backyard.
It's actually 3 separate parcels.
I understand, but it's fenced in, so it's been combined as one, basically. It's been used as a single property.
But
for
are you
one of the
asserting,
adjoining houses.
are you asserting that it's owned by somebody who's not selling it to these people?
I'm asserting that what he's trying to say is that he has a hardship because he wants to build a home on property, and I'm saying it's a self-imposed hardship because right now it's being used and enjoyed as a backyard for the property owner who lives in one of those homes.
Yeah, but whether they have the right to use that property is a different issue, meaning the people who are using it now. That's why I joked earlier about those sheds. They better get their sheds off of there if that property's sold, if they don't have ownership of that property. But that's the adverse possession issue that was alluded to earlier. If somebody has a claim of adverse possession, they better bring that pretty quickly, it seems to me.
Well, the Golis who currently own the property live on Teresa Street. Their home is
So
on
they're
Teresa
using
Street.
that as their backyard then?
That's what I'm saying.
But they're selling it. So I
understand.
presume they don't care that it's going to be developed by these people.
Well, I would suppose not. But what I'm saying is the only hardship they have going on here is one they're creating for themselves. It's not like it's owned currently and can't be used for anything, is what I'm saying.
Well, that's not really the standard for a hardship. The question is, can they develop the parcel if they were to buy it? And the hardship is the way that those lots have been designated since 1918, they're not usable. That's
Wait,
the hardship.
Are you familiar with the term movie lot?
Yeah, for sure. Those are all movie lots.
So you know they were never intended to be built on unless you accumulated enough to meet the standard for building on them, which currently is R1, which this property does not come even close to meeting.
That's correct.
Okay, so they're proposing to build on a lot, well, combined lots, that are just about half of what's required by zoning.
But where are they going to go? to make that 65,000 square feet? Where are they going to go?
Somewhere else. They don't need to buy this property. That's what I'm trying to say to you, is that they're buying this property and creating their own hardship. What's to prevent someone from buying 2 or 3 lots elsewhere and building a home and coming to you with the same rationale? For instance, I own 3 properties separate from my current residence. I could come to you and want to build a home. At what point do you say, enough is enough? We'll have homes all over that. Every one of those boxes is owned. And people can come before you and want to build a hut.
Right, and nobody can do anything with them.
I'm enjoying them. I'm using them.
Yeah, you're enjoying them on your property because you already live in a house. But the
That's
people
right.
who own those properties can't do anything with those properties. So why should they suffer because of your enjoyment?
They don't need to buy it. Buyer beware.
People who already own them, though.
They've owned them since 1918, right? They've been bought and sold.
Yeah, that's the question. They've been owned them for that long, and if the zoning changed, how are they affected? They've been adversely affected by that zoning change.
Well,
Your argument is more probative to them because they're buying it now. What those people do with their lots, if they've owned them for a long time, really is not what's before us. But the point is, those people are locked. One of the questions I was going to have for these folks is, if you look at the way it's laid out, how are people going to get access to the properties back there once they build their house?
Right. That's my it's further questions I have. So all these paper streets, we better be prepared for them to become actual streets as you folks approve these zoning requests.
Which is what they're asking for within the parameters of the streets. I'm surprised they haven't come in and said, gee, let's try and get rid of those streets so we can get more property.
Well, it's certainly something that could be considered. I'd rather see the township condemn them and make them open space and remove the problem entirely.
You better start talking to your supervisors then about that.
Oh, you better believe I will, especially if you approve this request.
I think one of the issues here, not to interrupt, is that they are actually bound by paper streets. There is no way that they can expand beyond the paper street to make the yard the size that, that would actually fit the 65. If they could, we could say, yeah, you need to be R1, even though none of the houses there are really fit R1.
I understand, but what we could say to them is, then don't buy these properties because it doesn't meet the zoning requirements that exist today when you're offering to buy the property. Right? We could say that to them.
So can we say to all the people that own all those movie lots, you cannot sell it?
No.
You must retain this property, whether you want to or not?
No, but you can say buyer beware, you can sell it. It's the buyer who would be taking the gamble and buying property they can't build on.
I think he is buyer beware because he's come before us for relief from the limitations.
Right, he's coming to you with what I would view as a resident as unreasonable relief request. Because what I envision, I live in that house there. I can envision, you see all those little lots that a lot of them I don't own. I could have a house right next to my current house if you throw out all your zoning ordinances and you approve, something
request.
less than half of what's required under R1.
We're not throwing them out. We're considering his application.
Well, I'll testify later and respectfully request that you reject it.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Anyone else?
Board questions?
No, here's a gentleman.
I just had a clarification. My name's Peter Schlenker. I live on West Mount Kirk Avenue. I know it's not anywhere near this in Lower Providence Town.
Hallelujah, right? Your view's not impinged.
I have a question. SCHLENKER. The question I have is, I just heard a comment that it was less than half. I thought I heard the engineer say it was more than half.
It's 37,487 square feet, whereas 65,000 square feet is required.
It's about 57 or 58%, roughly.
It is more than half.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
That concludes the case on behalf of the applicant. Thank you very much. I would ask for admission of exhibits A1 through A4 and A6.
Any objection to the exhibits by anyone? Seeing none, hearing none, they're admitted.
Should we ask for testimony?
I think that's
I have
what they're doing.
questions. Is there anything?
Anyone have anything else they want to say for or against? As in
Ma'am, you wanted to
testimony?
come up? Yep.
Yep. Oh, here's another,
Mr. Bailey, after you, I guess. Come on up.
yeah.
Could I reserve about 2 minutes for closing?
Sure.
Yeah.
Denise Campana, Campana. Yes, I do. I'm going to restate that I respectfully request that you decline this application. I think that as a neighborhood, we are at risk. Every one of these that gets approved erodes our enjoyment of our neighborhood, puts us at risk for smaller and smaller lots being constructed upon. As you can see, all of those boxes, I take your point, they're individually owned. However, they were raffled away as movie lots, and over time, individuals have bought them, resold them, tried to combine them. And I'd make the case any hardship created is one of their own making. This neighborhood is now R1. The applicants are fully aware that it's R1. They're fully aware that these properties do not meet the zoning requirements. And while it might be 58%, that's still kind of a low percentage for what's required under R1. And I think that as you start granting these variance requests, what you're really doing is eroding our zoning to the point where I don't feel protected. And Mrs. Esky, I appreciate that you said earlier that your job is to protect us, and this would not be protecting us. This would be putting us at risk.
But how does it hurt you?
It hurts me because all of those other lots now can use this decision as a precedence. Well, you granted it for them, why don't you grant it for me?
So development is what's going to harm you, is the point.
Development on lots that are too small with larger homes, the paving of these streets, the taking up of impervious cover, I'm concerned. I'm concerned, pardon me, about the implications. My house is a few hundred years old.
Denise, can I ask you where your house is? I know you pointed it.
My house is the one on the right there.
This one?
No,
Right here?
that one, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And you can see I'm literally surrounded. Some of those lots we own, my husband and I own, some we do not. The paper streets we're talking about, one of them goes right across the corner of my home. You can see the line. Another one goes through my barn. So I'm concerned as I see these variances being granted that we're getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And it was zoned R1 for, I presume, a reason.
How long have you lived there?
I've lived there for almost 18 years.
And so when you lived there, they built that other house up there at
Yes.
55 there?
Yes. And we've successfully fought at least one other home that was being attempted to be built that was granted variances.
In that area?
Yes.
Not the same ones that these folks are after?
No.
So how did the one up there, number 55, get in there? Did you oppose that one?
I believe that we did, yes, but not successfully. You can't win them all. But that's what I'm saying. That's my point.
Right. You see a gradual erosion or taking away of what otherwise was a neighborhood that you really enjoyed, but you wouldn't enjoy as a result of all that being developed.
Right, that's all woods. I mean, all of those, that's currently open space, it's woods. And slowly we're watching houses being built on, as I said, smaller and smaller
Right.
Properties.
But that's all owned, like you said, it's owned by other owners, it's not owned by the township or anything like that.
Well, I sure wish it was, but that's correct.
And you own some lots around there, you said. Do you own lots around your home?
Yes, we own lots along Elizabeth Street, so looking at the plan, I couldn't point them out to you at this moment, but they're on I presume the other side. They're more on the side where my home is.
And you bought those, I presume, to preserve your privacy, is that why?
That's correct.
Sorry, Bob, you had some questions.
I was just, and I'm just picking on your knowledge. I know that area a little bit. I don't live far from there myself. And I certainly am sympathetic to a lot of what you're saying. I'm just wondering how many structures have been built since 1955 when the zoning came into effect. Just from driving through there, it looked like there were new structures, and a lot of them were on much smaller lots than we're looking at today.
Hence
So
my
I know
alarm.
that many of them on existing roads have been built. So I
Right.
think your issue is really more, you're worried about the expansion of paper roads and the consolidation of lots farther down. But I'm not sure that, and Mike, you can help me with this, I'm not sure that those old paper roads could be converted at this point if they've been left and unclaimed for literally 100 years or 99 years.
Well, as the expert said, not if they're blocked, which is occurring. I know that we've done that to block a street so that we would have a case should someone try to put it in. Plus, one goes through my barn, so we're not tearing down our barn, so I don't think that's going to be successfully put through.
Well, we certainly, that's the board's mission, of course, is to balance all this out within reason, and the question is, what is reasonable?
Right. So I'm puzzled by this idea of hardship, and perhaps it's not. I'm not a lawyer, obviously.
You're doing great.
Thank you. But I understand hardship in that they own property they want. Well, they don't currently own it, but you want people to be able to use the property that they own. But my question to you is, at what point do you become responsible for creating your own hardship? When you buy property that clearly does not meet the zoning ordinances of this township, you are doing that at risk. And if you're not an informed buyer, then you're a foolish buyer. And I'd respectfully suggest to you that we start maintaining our standards and not granting self-imposed hardships, which I heard some voices in the audience, we view this as a self-imposed hardship. They don't currently own the land. There's nothing stopping them from walking away. They're taking a gamble. They're gambling that you're going to grant them this variance, and they've protected themselves because they know it's a risk. So I would imagine, I haven't asked the question, but I would imagine that the sale is not complete because it's contingent on receiving
Correct.
relief.
That's how it typically works.
Right there, they're gamblers.
So how about the people that own it now? Are they to be prohibited from ever realizing any profit? And I can see certainly in cases they would if it were tiny lots. I think our issue is, at what point do we say these people that have been paying, maybe it's been in the family since 1918 and they've been paying taxes on it, at what point do they say, can we do anything with this to realize our retirement fund or
I understand.
whatever?
These properties have not been owned by this family since 1918. They were bought separately, not too very long ago, and again, purchased to enhance their own property where they currently live, which I think was an intelligent thing for them to do. My husband and I have done the same, so we've bought several as they become available and our funds allow. We buy them with the intention of leaving them as open space. But there would be nothing to prevent me from deciding my retirement could hinge on subdividing my property and building 2 or 3 houses on my current property, as well as building some houses on individual lots that we've purchased. At what point do you say, find another retirement plan?
And I think that's our problem, is at what size do they have to be and what are the conditions? In this case, again, they're kind of blocked by paper roads. They can't get any bigger.
But they knew
Whereas, you know, if you said I've got a 20,000 square foot, we might say no. If you put together a whole bunch and you're right on a road and it's 48,000 square feet and you decide you want to fund your retirement, I don't know. We might have to look at that. Again, I'm not saying which way the board's leaning. I'm just saying these are the considerations we have to take into account.
Right, and I'm respectfully requesting that you turn it down, because I'm seeing smaller and smaller lots having bigger and bigger homes put on them, and it creates issues, and it erodes our enjoyment of our neighborhood. And we bought it when it was zoned R1, which we felt gave us some protection against the development that we're considering here today. And I'd respectfully request that you protect us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bailey.
Anyone else?
William Bailey. I do. Just set you straight, Robert. What's your last name?
Hart.
Hart. I've been in that area. I've been in that house for 37 years. The only other house that was ever built there since I've been there is 55, and that didn't need a zoning. That had enough property when the property was purchased and the house was built. Just to straighten that out.
Thank you.
And we're talking about hardship and everything. It's not hardship. This is for profit from one seller. And his profit's putting hardship on me for my view and my privacy. You do have zoning. You have your measurements already. You just switch them for profit against other people's values and everything, I feel is wrong. I just wanted to go on record, I oppose this, and I hope the variance doesn't go through.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that has anything they want to add? Oh, wait a minute.
There was someone.
Hand went up.
Hi, my name is Kristen Hartman. That's Hartman. I do. I live in the property of 3419. So it's right next to the Golis' property, and I just kind of want to second a lot of what William said, is that it's just, he was asked earlier if that house that he wants to put up is roughly the same size as a lot of the other houses in the neighborhood, and really it's not. A lot of us have just single-story houses. So actually the house that they're talking about putting in is actually quite a bit larger than our house personally, which is only 850 square feet. And that essentially, although I do not own that back property, the Golises do, but that is technically what I see as my backyard. So to put an additional home in that space, it just feels pretty restricted already, like we're just getting more and more suffocated as things kind of tend to go up, and it just doesn't really seem like a big enough space to go ahead and put a house there. It's just not ideal for the neighborhood. In addition to doing that, Mr. Golis also has spaces that he uses that yard for extra vehicles and stuff. If he were to lose that property himself, which I understand he's selling, where is he then going to put all of his vehicles and garage stuff in our already really compromised neighborhood? We don't have too much parking space additional. So if you take away that from him, if he wants to sell that, then where is he additionally going to put his sheds that he has back there, and his trailer and his boat and, the RV and all the other vehicles? Then they would have to outpour onto the street and additionally just take up more of our space.
But you hit the nail on the head when you said it's his property to sell. Now, if he goes ahead and puts that stuff on the street where it doesn't belong, then that's when you call Mr. Merzinski over here, who's the code enforcement officer, who would come along and cite him for violating the ordinance, which requires him to not have those parked there.
Right.
So it's a different issue, but I appreciate what you're saying. The real issue that I think everybody has to grasp and understand is the balancing test that's involved. You're right. There's a certain ordinance that applies, a zoning ordinance. But if it was so rigid that the way that you're describing it should be, we wouldn't have the ability to grant variances. The issue with hardship that you talked about, it's not self-imposed for them to buy a property that has a challenge to its dimensions. That's not what the hardship necessarily means. It's not self-imposed by buying it per se. Usually a hardship occurs when there's a self-imposed hardship. It's when you have a property that you, in essence, already may have a property on and you want to put something else on it just because you want to put it on there. But if you can't develop your property, then you have a problem. And the question is, do we want to deny people the right to develop their properties? That's the age-old balancing test that you go through. Is it right to deny someone the use of property the way they want to use it? Again, this is America. We believe in freedom. We believe in the ability to do what we want with our property within reason. Sounds like your property is probably one of the first intended properties if it's only 950 square feet or 850 square feet. That's probably what was originally intended there. Now, of course, the zoning has changed. So in your situation, what would you do with that property? You couldn't do much with it, could you?
Well, what I might recommend is that Mr. Golis sells it to the rest of the owners of the other houses that might want to have a bigger yard.
Have you folks talked to him about that?
We haven't, but I think that underneath, under the proper price, I know that my friend and I would possibly be interested in
Maybe
purchasing
that's
the
your
land,
solution.
Behind us, as well as Mr. Bailey might also be interested in buying the land behind him, so.
And that might be your solution. You have a bidding war with these folks who are already under agreement of sale. The problem is you're sort of a day late and a dollar short, unfortunately. So that's the real question. And what this board decides to do, I think, is really going to dictate what that's going to look like.
Can I say, Mr. and Mrs. Golis, did
Yeah.
they actively market this property for sale? I mean,
Not that I'm aware of.
There was no for sale sign. It wasn't listed by a realtor of any kind. I mean, I don't see a realtor named in the
No,
agreement of
I've
sale
never been
here.
made aware of that sort of option ever.
Okay, so this was just kind of a very, well, use the microphone, please.
It was listed for sale online, for sale by owner.
Well, if I wasn't searching for that, I mean, why would I know if it wasn't, posted somewhere?
Sure, that's true.
I mean, I'm
You
not
may not
looking,
have
so-
known it, but that's not really a zoning issue per se.
Right. Well, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks.
Are they going to let you talk this time? Anyone else? Conclude.
Thank you very much. Simple dimensional variance case. The reason why we have variances built into the municipality's planning code is that for instances such as this, that when we have an existing condition that has existed since 1918, and if you look at your editor notes in the zoning ordinance, you'll see that the R1 65,000 square foot limitation was adopted in or about, my recollection is 1986. There were further amendments in 2006. We are dealing with the condition that existed for almost, well, right now, 90 years. That's not a self-created hardship. If we were not permitted to allow variances for the reasonable use of property, we would then be into what we call a regulatory taking. If we then put zoning on top of ground and suddenly you can no longer make any beneficial, reasonable use of the property, that would be a regulatory taking. That's all why we have a variance case, and that's why you're here, to look at a request and to make sure that we are proposing reasonable requests and reasonable variances. And that's why we have the element called minimum. What is the minimum relief here? Importantly here, the minimum relief is we didn't ask Mr. Gaulis to sell us half. We said, Mr. Gaulis, sell us all of that area, all 37,400 square feet. And what that did was that minimized the relief we're asking tonight because we maximized the area that was permissible to us within the bounds of the paper street and the backyards of the Teresa Road properties. We think that our request is reasonable because of maximizing the area. We've minimized the variance request for side yard, rear yard, front yard items. We've situated the house close enough to Washington to minimize the driveway and the impervious surface uses, and we certainly have situated the house so we're not disrupting a person's backyard and side yard involvements with the paper street coming off, which we refer to as Lincoln. So we've attempted to minimize the impact on all homes by limiting egress and ingress along Washington Avenue. So we believe that we've well stated a request for dimensional variances to permit the construction of a single-family home on this area of 37,400 square feet. We very much appreciate your time this evening and your comments.
Thank
you.
You want to close? Come on up.
It has to do with something you just mentioned. Robert Campaign? I do. Now, this gentleman just mentioned that the zoning was changed in 1986, you said, I believe, to R1. The middle property back in 1997, I believe,
So he was well aware of what the law was at the time, what the zoning was. So you can't say that, oh, it was changed on him. That was not the case. He was well aware of what the rules were when he purchased that land. You can't accept that all of a sudden it's okay to sell it as one big piece. Shame on him. Thank you.
Thanks. No matter what happens, it sounds like it's a happy neighborhood.
I think we're going to do the same thing. We're going to adjourn for a few minutes, go and talk about this, and we'll be back in a few. Okay, if you're wondering why, when we come back, I keep staring in that corner, we are all being videotaped, so you're all going to be on TV. So if you haven't had enough, you can go home and watch it again. After conversation, the board has decided that we need to have more time to review this, so we're not making a decision this evening. We will make a decision by the next meeting, either have you come back or we will mail you a decision. So thank you for your presentation, and thank you to the people in the audience who spoke.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, clear the room.
Ready for that one?
Who's
Who's announcing that one?
No, Bob's doing it.
Bob's
Bob's
doing it?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was waiting for the crew to leave. a little
Yeah,
bit.
well,
What, you want
yeah,
me to
take
get
your time.
started?
Yeah, no. Do you have it?
I have it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We still have more applications to consider, so if you can take your conversations outside, we would greatly appreciate it.
So, moving along. Next is Z-17-05, Christina and Robert Samptman. Am I saying that right? 105 Farmhouse Drive, Audubon, Pennsylvania, 19403. The applicant is requesting a dimensional variance from section 143-37A2 from the side and rear yard setbacks to permit construction of an addition to side and rear of existing house. I don't think that makes good grammatical sense, but the parcel ID number of the subject property is 43-00-04143-503. Subject parcel is located at 105 Farmhouse Drive, Audubon, Pennsylvania, and is in the R2 residential zoning district. And I'm sorry I read that so fast. I forgot what I was doing.
Who's going to be the presenter?
I am. My name's Christina Santman, and this is my husband, Rob. We are the owners of the property at 105 Farmhouse Drive.
Welcome.
Thank you.
A long wait.
And if you're going to start, why don't you just be sworn in so that you don't have to go through that rigmarole once you're in the midst of your flow.
Okay, sounds good. I do. So along with the application packet that you have, we also have the following exhibits. We have a land survey that was completed by Bursick and Smith Engineering. And then you also have a plot plan and the floor plan, which was completed by J.R. Stevens Architects.
Let me stop you for a second, I'm
Yes.
sorry. And that's this packet that was attached to the application?
That's correct.
So I presume, and you did a very nice job, by the way, with that, thank you. We always like to have these in some way that we can see them.
Okay.
And visualize what you're proposing. So in this packet, I presume that you want to introduce them in this fashion. So if we were to say A1 is the application, and then A2 would be the land survey, and then A3 would be the plot plan and floor plan.
That's fine.
And then A4 would be the home elevations. Is that fair to you?
That sounds fine to me.
Okay, Paula, you got all that, I'm sure? Thank you.
And as I was saying, what would be now considered A4 is the elevations for the addition. So as I said, we are the property owners. We've lived there since '99. We are currently getting ready to do some improvements, including roofing, windows, and siding. And at this point, we thought it would be a good idea to consider an addition, which would mainly be a future in-law suite and possible master suite, depending on what comes first. We have 4 grandparents that are starting to have health issues. My mother in particular has been in and out of the hospital with a brain tumor, and so we're thinking that in the future, in the next few years, that it's a very high probability that we would need her to come in and live with us. So that's why we're considering it this time. We don't need it at this immediate point, but since we are doing roof, windows, and siding, we want any addition to look like it's part of the home. So we thought this would be a good time to do that. If you look at A2, which is the survey of our current property as it is now, you'll see that the property corners where our house sits currently, we are 15 feet from one corner and 18 feet from the other 2 corners. So right now, as our house currently is, we don't meet the setbacks. Additionally, we too do have an odd-shaped lot.
Yeah, really.
Here.
So is that your house right there in the middle?
So that is
Yeah.
our house, yeah, right in the center. And that is the White House right there. So you'll see our driveway comes up along the right-hand side, and we have, right now, the garage doors are on the right. And as you can see, if you look at the driveway, it is challenging with the driveway being on the side and the angle and getting in and out of the garage. So as part of the addition, and I'll get to this in more detail, we will be putting the garage doors in the front. So that will eliminate that particular situation. So if you go to A3, which is the plot plan, so here you can see that, there we go. Oh, that's a little light. So you'll see that we have the actual setbacks on that plot plan. So you'll see that the actual side yard setbacks currently go through our house, and we will be bumping out. The yellow portion is actually the addition. Oh, thank you. Okay. So this is the driveway here as it was before, but we'll be eliminating the driveway, and this will be the master or in-law suite. The garage is going to be expanded as well. And then this is our family room currently, so the family room will be bumped out to be a little bit bigger. This in-law suite right here consists of a bedroom, a bathroom, and a closet. There's nothing in there that will be cooking or anything like that. It's strictly living space only. Okay. As you can see here, this is the closest point that we get to the property line. This distance right here is 9 feet, 2 inches. So we've gone from 18 feet and we've cut it like about in half. And that's the closest point that we get to the property line on that corner. And then the garage doors will be right here, and the driveway will come straight up to the front of the house. The garage will be expanded to accommodate more parking. Let's see. I think that overall, the way that the architect did the design, she did it in a way to add on space, so we don't really have to start from scratch. We can build onto the existing property, so we don't have to tear anything down, which is helpful to us in terms of keeping costs down. But the primary hardship for us is we want to stay in Lower Providence. My husband has said we're not moving ever. So we're trying to make this something where we can stay here long term, but make it something where we can have the ability to have the space for possible in-laws, and then for ourselves in the future as well. Trying to think what else I wanted to add. And then if you want to look at the last A4, you'll see the home elevations. When you're actually looking at the home now, facing front, as I said, the garage will be in the front, and then you'll just see a bump out along the side when you're looking at it. But most of the addition is in the driveway that's existing now. So the existing driveway space along the right-hand side will be taken up by most of the addition. And then we'll be bumping out the back for a short amount.
Well, I have to say it's a reasonable design. That's good in the sense that it doesn't really project too far one way or the other. That's in your favor, so you did a nice job with that.
Okay.
The question that sort of is out there is what, for the, if you can't do this, what's the hardship that you heard about in the previous hearing is what's been bandied about here this evening, and the question is this a significant hardship, and how will it impact the neighborhood? Are there other additions in the neighborhood that you've witnessed or seen?
Yes, actually the house directly to the left of us, they have an addition that they did where they added on to, if you see the garage on the left, and then they have space on the right, it's all, they did it so it all looks like one. It doesn't look like an addition.
That's right next to you.
Yeah, and then up the street further, there was a pretty significant addition done where they, although it was a second floor addition, I don't know if that.
They went up.
Yeah, they went up. Yeah.
Have you talked to neighbors, specifically those bordering you?
Yes, yes. So the neighbor that's directly to our left, your right, John and Denise Melito, we spoke with them directly, and there was no concern or opposition. And directly to on the other side, the Stiles, we spoke with them as well. And then I spoke with a lot of the other neighbors in the area.
How close is, did you say Delito?
Melito.
Melito, how close is their house to the property line?
Their house to the property line?
You know? Can you
I
guess?
Could you guess?
12 to 15 feet.
And then,
you can actually measure it on Google Earth.
Yeah, and if they could pull up the, like, looking down as an aerial.
then what about the neighbors to the back? Have you spoken with any of those?
I tried to get a hold of them, but I wasn't able to. So I haven't spoke with them directly.
And do you have any other buildings on your property?
We do have a shed in the back far corner,
Do you have one shed or two?
just one.
One.
Christina, you had mentioned the garage is expanding.
Mhm.
Is it going from a 2 to a 3-car garage?
It'll actually will it hold 4? It's,
Well, you have to be sworn in. You're testifying, and you have to use the mic, so please, don't be shy.
Robert L. Santman Jr., S-A-M as in Mary, T as in Tom, M-A-N-N. I do. You could technically fit 4 in there if you went bumper to bumper, but it's not optimal.
And when you say 4, 2 and 2, or 3 and 1? So 2 and 2.
Correct.
So it's basically 2-car garage to pull into.
Yep.
But you can pull 4.
That's correct.
It's deeper than the average garage, it sounds like.
Yes.
And as you were mentioning, before it was actually a side-loading garage. You had a driveway that would go around, and that would basically get you within approximately 9 feet from the neighbor. And now you're going to eliminate the driveway, but put that corner of the garage there. But you're not really getting, if you count the driveway, you're not getting any closer in that sense.
The driveway's immediately up against the property line.
There'd be no way, obviously, that you could get side loading without going right up to the.
And
it's already tight right now as it is because we have a retaining wall that goes all the way along the right-hand side of our driveway. So it makes that coming up and turning in pretty tight.
Especially when it snows.
Yeah, it's a long driveway to plow, right?
The garage that you're going to be building or expanding, however you want to describe it, is there going to be living space above that garage?
No. So the ceilings of the garage are going to be elevated because my husband has a lift that will be going in there for he does car work. So that's why the ceilings are higher. So there will not be any space above.
Well, and I appreciate your volunteering that, but that's what sort of sends up the antenna when we talk about this, because there is a policy in place in the R2 district, which is what you're in, that it doesn't want construction of things that are going to facilitate a differing use from the neighborhood. I mean, it's 143-35A2, which says it's to carefully protect these areas from non-residential uses or higher residential density that may not be fully compatible with the existing neighborhood.
Yes.
So when you say your husband's going to have a lift in there and deal with cars, tell us a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. He does work as a hobby. He has a car that he likes to do work on, so it's strictly a hobby only. He does not do work for other people or as a business of any sort.
Right answer. Other questions?
Is there, and I don't know if Mike, if you can help with this, like, is there any, by adding this addition on there, I mean, do you guys create any kind of, stormwater, water runoff issue for the neighbor, particularly to your left, which would be our right, because you're moving closer to them?
Right.
Is that, I mean, is there any kind of issue with that, or would be created with that, Mike?
What I can testify to is basically that that would be handled in part of the building permit plan. We don't have that amount of detail yet. Whether it was up for a variance or not, we'd be looking at it for stormwater and erosion and sediment control with pretty much any building project, any addition. So when those plans were developed, assuming that the applicant goes forward, then we would review that with the township engineer and make sure that no water was coming off the property.
If I could address the question as well, the neighborhood is tiered. The lowest part of the neighborhood is at Sunnyside. So once you enter Farmhouse, it just simply goes up from there. Okay. So the neighbor to our right, if you're looking at the house, is higher than we are. So even with the addition, it's still sloping towards us.
Okay.
Now, you made the Joneses come out here tonight for the spectacle that it was. And you folks too, but I don't know your names. I know them because they're famous or they're infamous.
Yes, I have a very nice neighborhood representation here.
And what do they have to say? I wouldn't want you to come here and not be able to get on television like the rest of us.
Do I have to be sworn in?
If you're going to testify, you do. Or don't you swear?
If I'm in favor of it, do I get sworn in?
You're in favor of it?
Yeah, I don't we've known them for quite a long time, and we're definitely in favor of them getting this variance to do this. First of all, I think ultimately, when you look at the driveway goes right.
Now
up
you're
the property.
testifying.
Swear me in. So anyway, we're in favor of it. I know the Melitos are in favor of it. We live right next to them. We're 2 houses up.
Still testifying, but that's okay. I thought that maybe you wanted to move into that addition once this was all built.
It isn't out of the question. She did say it was an in-law. We're not exactly in-laws, but we're close. We're old enough. So, yes.
You support it?
We support it.
Does your lovely bride support it as well?
It really doesn't make any difference.
Living dangerously.
Anyone else? And who are we? Come on up. Don't be shy.
Hi, Reed McCann, and I live on the other side of Barbara and Howard. And you can move in with me, too. Yeah, and the Salmons do keep their home very beautifully, and I'm sure that the addition will only add to.
But can you even see their house because you're blocked by theirs, aren't you?
I can. I'm up the hill, so I can.
You look down on it. You're the ones up on that hill in the White House, et cetera. Yeah, I get it.
And Rob helps shovel my driveway.
So now we know the pecuniary benefit that you get as a result of this. Okay.
And I hear he fixes all the neighborhood cars, too. I don't know about that. Sorry I moved.
Hi, Sharon Roth, and I live across the street. So I see their house pretty much straight on. I'll see a little bit of the new addition, but I don't know if I'll see it all. But I'm for it.
Any relation to Bill?
Yes.
I got to recuse yourself.
Bill said he couldn't come.
Anyone else from the audience who'd like to chime in on this issue? I know the Culligan Water Man is ready to go back there. I don't know who they upset to come last, but they're going last.
I'm just going to mention one quick thing, just to clarify, not really even clarify, just to confirm what you already said and what the plan shows, is that this, what you're calling an in-law quarter, is just a bedroom and a bathroom and a closet. It does not even have cooking facilities. You're not going to want to move in. You can't cook.
I'll be doing the cooking.
So it really couldn't even be used as a separate, and I'm not saying that you would ever do this, but it has been known for people to get in-law quarters and then sort of rent them out.
Right.
And this could not even be used for that because you don't have any facilities for
No, there's
cooking.
absolutely no intention to do that. It's strictly
Just so
living
you're on the
space.
record, but that's great. Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience, from the board?
The access to the in-law suite is strictly through the house. It's not an
Yes.
outside.
There's
it's
no,
strictly-
right, there's no outside entrance. It's actually through our family room that the entrance will be.
Okay.
Mhm.
Anybody else? Audience?
Turn your thing on if you're talking.
I think we could do this one right here.
No, because we did all the others the same way.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So we'll take a few minutes and be back. Okay, we're back in session, and Gail, will you?
Sure. I would like to make a motion to approve the requested dimensional variance from section 143-37A2, side and rear yard setbacks, to permit construction of the addition as presented. Do I have a second to that motion?
I will second it.
Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions? You're granted. and we'll be making appointments to get our cars fixed.
I knew this was going to be painful in more ways.
Yeah. And
Thank
we're
you.
also, we're
Thank you
also
very
going
much.
to ask Mike to pay the heat bill so he can turn the heat up. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for coming out.
Good luck.
We've saved the best for last.
Good evening, Todd Savarese. Pleasure to be before the zoning hearing board. I'm here on behalf of Webb Shanahan LLC, the
Read
applicant.
that in the record first.
Yeah, we'll have to read that. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you.
Oh, yes. Patty, will read it, please. I don't know what you're talking about.
Our last item on the agenda tonight is Z-1706, Webb Shanahan Real Estate LLC, 1239 Columbia Road, Salisbury, Maryland, 21801. The applicant is requesting a dimensional variance from the within 600 feet of the GC district requirement set forth in the IP use regulations of section 143-136A relative to use type water softener sales service. Parcel ID number is 43-00-07930-001. Subject property is located at 915 Madison Avenue, Norristown, and is in the IP Industrial Park zoning district.
Thank you. Unlike the four applications that preceded the application before the board, we don't want to build anything. We are here, and Mr. Stephen Webb is a principal of Webb Shanahan LLC. Webb Shanahan LLC is a holding company of the Shanahan Water Company. Shanahan Water Company is a franchisee. They own 6 different franchises in 7 different jurisdictions. Mr. Webb is here to testify with regard to the circumstances that brought his company to begin a property search to relocate from their existing facility on Ridge Road. The owner of that property sold that facility, causing Mr. Shanahan to engage Mr. Ahia, who is the other witness that I will call to testify very briefly, who is a commercial real estate broker, to perform a search of suitable properties for purposes of accommodating the operation. A letter of intent was signed with the property owner. The property is under contract. The agreement of sale that gives Webb Shanahan, standing is in the zoning hearing board's packet as Exhibit A2. The zoning hearing board application is marked A1, and then A3 and A4 are Google Maps with an overlay of the existing properties and the uses of those properties that surround 915 Madison Avenue, the property that's the subject of this application. Just by way of background, I had dialogue on behalf of Webb Shanahan with Mr. Mrozinski, your zoning officer, with regard to the uses permitted in the IP district, the Industrial Park District. I was surprised to learn under the Lower Providence ordinance that there was a specific use that was referred to as a water softener sales/service use that was permitted by right in the IP district. And it was under that predicate that Mr. Ahia and my client proceeded with a letter of intent and entered into an agreement of sale with the owner of the property. They're currently in their due diligence period under that agreement, and it was based on the dialogue that I had personally with Mr. Mrozinski, we learned that the use is a permitted use, but it has to be within 600 feet of the GC zoning district boundary. The zoning ordinance itself also provides under the IP use regulations that if a use, and I'm referring specifically to section 143-136C, it says use by special exception. And of course, the application before the zoning hearing board is couched in terms of a variance, a dimensional variance, but I solicited from Mr. Mrzinski a zoning determination as to whether or not the applicant could proceed with an application for special exception because the use that we sought to qualify was of the same general character as the other uses permitted in the IP district. The guidance I got in response was no, you would need to process a dimensional variance application. So that's why we are before the board. Mr. Webb, if called to testify or when called to testify, will offer testimony with regard to his existing operations and his desire, his company's desire to stay within Lower Providence Township. They actually are, as I mentioned, they've been up until recently occupying a facility on Ridge Pike. That facility has been there for over 50 years. The Shanahan Water Company has been the franchisee for the past 3 years. The operation itself is primarily warehousing, and Mr. Ahia will testify with regard to Exhibits A3 and A4, specifically with regard to other uses permitted in the IP district, Horizon Services, Janney King of Philadelphia, Comcast, Zoom Drain, and Roto-Rooter, all of which are uses in close proximity to 915 Madison Avenue, and they all share a similar characteristic, which is the space itself is used primarily to warehouse the goods of the trade, and the trade here is water softener, purification, sales, and service, both residential and commercial. The fleet of vehicles that my client uses to operate are vehicles that will come to the location, load up the apparatus, the equipment that's necessary on any given day for any given project, leave the facility, go to the customer's home, complete the installation or whatever service is necessary, and then the operator of that truck will then not return to the facility and drop their van off. They will take that van home with them. We believe that the circumstances with regard to such a specific use appearing in the use regulations, I mean, frankly, if the use wasn't so specific to water softener sales service, the use regulations in the IP district would have permitted us to qualify an office business use, for instance, by special exception, because that was a use that is substantially similar to a use that's permitted under the IP zoning regulations. Based on the surrounding properties and the substantially similar uses, we believe that there's just been a change of circumstance that would treat the Shanahan Water Company, Webb Shanahan, disparately and differently than those other services like Horizon and Comcast and Roto-Rooter, which do essentially the same operation where they store their goods, they dispatch their drivers, and they go out to customer homes. So it's for those reasons that an application for a variance asking the board to grant some relief from that 600-foot limitation, my understanding from speaking with your zoning officer is this property is located approximately 1,800 or 1,900 feet from the GC district, and Exhibit A4 in the application packet has two red arrows that point to where the subject property is, and in the top left-hand corner, I believe it is, you'll see, and I think a light orange, the top right-hand corner, you'll see in a light orange shade that the area that is the GC district. Thank you for indulging that long introduction, but unless the board has any questions of me, I would ask that both Mr. Webb, a.k.a. the Colligan Water guy, and Mr. Ahia be sworn.
I'm Steve, S-T-E-V, Webb, W-E-B-B. Yes.
Mr. Webb, you heard my introduction to the members of the zoning hearing board. Is that correct?
Yes.
Was anything contained in that introductory statement inaccurate or anything you'd like to correct what I said?
No, you know what we do.
Okay. Just tell the board what the nature of your business is, how many employees, and fill in any blanks that I may have left unfilled.
Could you please speak into the microphone so we can pick up the audio? Thank you.
We're a water treatment company. We warehouse water softeners, and we do service sales out of Eagleville. We're the Culligan man. We deliver bottled water and salt to people's homes. Again, and we service and sell water softeners. And the location that's there now, we're on Ridge Pike, West Ridge Pike, it's been there over 50 years. And we bought the company from the person who actually owned the Culligan water treatment company and the building. Actually, he still works. He still works for us today, but he sold the building, and so we're relocating. We want to stay in Lower Providence because that's some of our employees have actually been there over 25 years, and that's where they want to live and do business. So we hired Chi-Chi to find us a place, and didn't realize how tough it was going to be actually. So. But we found something, and now we're just trying to get that approved so we can move about 2 miles away and do business.
And this is a 15,000 square foot single-family warehouse building?
Yes.
Is that correct? And it's on about 1.284 acres of land?
Yes.
Do you propose any kind of outdoor storage or outdoor displays?
No, we have a huge warehouse, so no, we don't. That's why one of the advantages to this over where we're at today. Today it's all chopped up and just wasn't a very good place to do business for us. So no, this is more warehouse than we need.
Do you propose to do any type of exterior alteration to the building or the grounds that surround it?
No.
They're all the questions I have for Mr. Webb.
I have a question. The way it operates now at Culligan, people can go there and get water. Will you have that service
Yes.
still?
Yes, it's a real small part of our business, but we do have regulars, longtime customers that pick up 5-gallon bottles of water.
Right.
And salt.
That's my only question at the moment. Anyone else?
Real quick one, 915 Madison, is that whole building going to be purchased?
Yes.
It seems, just when I drove by, there were some other signs in the window. Will anyone else be there? You're going to sublet part of that to other companies?
It's going to be us.
Just you?
Just us.
Under the agreement of sale that remains, subject to satisfaction of conditions, the owner was required to give notice to the existing tenant to vacate. So they're in their 90-day notice period. Their notice period ends on June 1.
Great, thank you. That answers the question.
Yeah, I had just a couple questions. So, when you talked about the fleet before, how many vehicles are in the fleet? If you had to take a guess,
So we have 10.
10 vehicles, and then where are those vehicles going to be? I can't imagine they're going to be parked in the warehouse. Will they be outside on the property?
There will be 2 outside, and
Okay.
the other vehicles go home. That's
Okay.
one of the kind of perks, or whatever you want to call it, for the employee. They take it home. They take the vans home. We require them to wash them, but they take them home and bring them in. So when they're done, end of the day, they don't have to come back. It'd be real tough to get back because we're pretty well spread out around this area. So they take the vans home, and the next morning they come in and load up and do the same thing.
And the property has plenty of parking during the day and stuff.
Yeah.
You guys can get in and out of there.
Warehouse,
no
we can
problem.
drive the vans into the warehouse.
Okay.
That's another advantage of this property versus what we have now.
I know you're in your due diligence period right now. Does the property have any environmental issues or anything of concern at the moment? Anything that you'd have to remediate or take care of that could be a problem?
No, we just got the environmental report back, and no.
Okay. So you guys got a phase 1 back, and
Phase 1,
it's clean. Okay.
Plus, we've got the other reports from the previous, the seller gave us his old reports, and there was nothing there either. Because our bank will require that to be clean.
And just one last question. Given the fact that you guys are dealing with chemicals and other things that are going on there, is there anything that in other words, your company, your employees could possibly do that could contaminate the building over time if mishandled or properly used?
We do chlorination for hydrogen sulfide, so people that have smelly water. We use some chlorine, but they come in plastic jugs, and we deliver it to the home, and we pour it in the chlorinator, and that's the chemical we use. We don't do any processing at the warehouse or there. That's strictly done at the home.
Do you generate any trash?
Yeah.
And you'll have dumpsters there?
Yes.
What was it used before? Do you know that location?
Yeah, he's. I guess he's some kind of a plastic light manufacturing. So I think he makes plastics that he's delivering, but I'm not quite sure.
But that whole area is basically the industrial park, right? Is that what it is? And it's all it's mixed offices and
kind of like what we do. I mean, the guys around us, Horizon does similar thing. Trucks come now. They have a lot of trucks left there overnight, but they have guys come in, load trucks, go back out. They do pretty much the same thing. Roto-Rooter, those are probably some plumbers. We have some plumbers that work for us. So similar.
Thank you. Do you have questions for Mr. Ohia?
I just wanted Mr. Ohia to identify that his office, or under his supervision, prepared Exhibits A3 and A4 in the board's packet, and just to offer a brief 1 or 2 line testimony with regard to the properties that surround 915 and the compatibility of the existing uses to what's proposed by Sharp Water.
Microphone, sorry.
Good evening. I will keep it brief as requested. In conducting the search, one of the things that drew us to this property is the use that is there now is Acrylex. It's a plastic fabrication manufacturing company, a very similar operational nature to Sharp Water. So,
When you say similar, you're not manufacturing or anything there.
not in terms of manufacturing, but in terms of in and out, in terms of the number of vehicles.
So it's going to be a less intrusive use theoretically with the Culligan Water folks there than a manufacturer, it sounds like.
Yeah, for sure. And then in addition, as Todd has mentioned, our firm prepared this document, and most of the uses in the area are of very, very similar nature.
Yeah, I can't read this. Sorry, my old eyes won't let me read it. So all these orange dots mean what?
They correspond to this document.
Right.
Which?
Oh, you have the big one. You're cheating on me.
My eyes aren't as great. So they correspond to the locations of the properties that are of similar.
But I can't tell because the numbers are all blurred. So what can you point out to us some of the surrounding buildings and what they are, particularly the ones that are helping your case, whether it's Horizon or Roto-Rooter or Master Plumbers or whatever they're called?
So, Mr. Ahia, that would be number 6 would be one of the uses that I was cited in my opening. Janie King of Philadelphia, janitorial services.
Okay, give me the so number 6.
Number 6.
Give me another number. I'll do them all at once so that we.
Okay, number.
You have the pointer? Where's that laser pointer there, Michael? Trying to keep you awake.
Thank you very much.
Number 6. Number 2 is Horizon Services, also in the IP district.
All right, I lost the subject here. Did we zoom differently? There we go. Okay, so number 6.
Yes, number 2, number 6.
Number 6.
Do that again for us. Where's the subject building? That one there with the cursor pointer, Mike? Is that it?
Yes, it is.
All right, where the cursor pointer is there, that's the subject.
Okay, do you mind zooming out just a little bit? Okay. Number 6 is actually right here.
Over there.
No, that can't be right. That's all the way on the other side of Trooper Road.
Yeah, that's down past the Walmart, right? So you're probably in there, yeah.
Yeah, you're right in there. Yep.
Oh, there we go. I'm sorry.
buildings
There we
are you
go.
looking for?
So this is the subject here.
Right.
Here we go. Here.
6 is which one? That's Horizon? Johnny King?
What was the other number, Todd? That you had?
8 is AVM, which is a vending machine services.
I'm losing the subject, but I believe it's here.
And they're all going to be on this side.
Yeah, no, you're over by Walmart up there. Yeah, and there. Yeah.
Do you mind zooming in just a little bit? Just a hair from where you are now.
Sorry to put you on the spot,
Oh,
but
no problem.
if you just want to give us that sheet, you can probably just give us that sheet.
Yeah, that actually might be.
Why don't you do that?
Do you have a copy? You don't have.
No, we just have a small sheet. That's why I said we can't really make it out. I'm just trying to get a sense. No, I think that's fine. I just wanted to see the general idea or general area. It's not critical necessarily, but I couldn't tell on the exhibit because it was so small. So if you're telling me the key ones are numbers,
Ready?
which ones? Johnny King would be 6.
Can I go down from the top? 2,
So
6.
6 is over here.
here's the subject.
Subject's there. 6 is, here's 5. Here's 1.
6 is right above 1.
Doesn't show on here, but,
Oh, here, and on mine, this is 6. Wait, where do I see it?
all right, so we're
Here's
making,
6.
we're making more trouble than we need to here. I don't even see it on here. Well, he has 6 way over here, behind the Walmart. So he was right going there.
But that's not 6 then. 'cause it's not
6
on
is
that side.
Johnny King of Philadelphia, which is down the other way. So what's another one? You said Horizon?
Yeah, check
Where's
out
Horizon? Let's
Horizon's
see.
number 2.
Number 2.
Yeah, they're
That's
back
right
in
here.
next door
So
to
that's
one.
close, yeah, 2's
Yeah.
close, right, got it. What else?
Another one's number 8, AVM services.
AVM
Looks
number
like 7 and
8.
8 are very close.
Yeah, those are all down behind the Walmart. Those are down by
They're
where the
across.
Y used to be.
Yeah, they're across Trooper Road.
Right.
How about 18, Comcast Cable?
I think they're in here too.
Let's see, I have 8 over here.
Comcast is right behind the building.
17, that's right.
15, 16.
Yeah, over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, this is funky.
Yeah, see, I have 8 and 6 right here.
But anyway, okay, just got a sense of it. I mean, it's just, it's an industrial park. You want to use it. I mean, I was going to ask you the question about what's the, and I don't want to express my ignorance here, but I've been the solicitor here for, I guess, about 6 or 7 years, and I've never had this issue come up with the 600 feet from the general commercial district issue. So what's the rationale that you would opine as far as the existence of that?
Well, I appreciate the question, and I was surprised when I initially did the zoning determination that the uses under the IP regulations were so specific, and I was surprised to find a use that was dead on to what my client was.
That's because they've been here for over 50 years.
Intending to use. That's probably why. So, of course, the question was posed to administration, like, what's the purpose of it? And the only thing that I could think of is that, you know, these use regulations with regard to limiting certain types of uses within 600 feet of the GC district, which obviously is a more, you know, dense type of district, was really aimed at the initial the build out of the area, as opposed to a situation like this where, you know, the property's been, I don't know how old the building is, but the property's been, and the use has been in existence for so many years, and the uses are already established. So, you know, discussions were had with regard to requesting the administration to potentially adopt a resolution that would amend the ordinance, but this was determined to be the most appropriate and perhaps the most expedient way to go. And I will regurgitate what I said earlier. I mean, I think it's unfair to penalize, first of all, a use that is existent in an industrial park, which is a warehousing type use, which certainly would seem compatible with the surrounding properties. We're not looking to establish some type of non-residential use in a residential or even a district that borders on a residential. But the ordinance itself specifically makes reference to all of these very specific uses, but then goes on to say we could come before this board with a request for a special exception to qualify something of the same general character. So I feel as if there's an inherent, perhaps, inconsistency there with regard to authorizing a use that is substantially similar, the same general character, by special exception, but penalizing a potential use that is specifically contemplated by the ordinance. It's kind of you give it and take it away.
You just don't want to let go of that special exception, do you? I get it. No, I understand. I'm just curious about the underlying theme. I don't think you're having too much difficulty from this board necessarily, but Michael wants to say something as far as the background and the rationale.
To further add to the testimony, my understanding of the 600-foot buffer in the various zones within the various industrial zonings, there's a couple of different categories. My understanding is that anything that has a retailish, if you will,
Component.
type of component to it was to be kept on the perimeter and towards the northern part of the industrial park to keep that similar as a transition into the general
commercial. Yeah, right.
And also to protect the those individuals well established in the industrial park who might have a little bit of concern with too much retail activity, and so it's kind of a transitional zone, and that's why that's the case. The applicant has a unfortunate thing because they have a tiny bit of retail, and because of that, and because our ordinance is so specific,
You can't ignore it.
I can't ignore it.
Right.
While I have the microphone, what the heck? I do want to.
Are you going to sing or something?
No, you don't. No, I'm not that. You don't want that, even at this late hour. I do want to, as a staff member, offer up that the township is in support of this application and township manager Don Delamater has issued a letter for the board's consideration.
Why don't we make this what is it? What number are we?
We will be at the A5.
A5, okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
So they love you, Mr. Culligan, man. That was helpful. I mean, that's sort of what I envisioned. We kicked it around in my office earlier today without prejudicing you, and we could only rationalize that was the issue. So it makes some sense. I guess the question is for Mr. Avila, and that is, are there others in the industrial park that you know of? Because obviously you're a commercial real estate broker, and that you've been in there. Have you seen anything similarly? I don't think Horizon has any retail component to it, does it?
I wouldn't say that there are retail components per se, but there are others that would accept and serve customers on site on a limited basis.
But
for example, Horizon would be one where they could have limited customer interaction on site.
But you can see, Mr. Webb, where this becomes the issue. That's all. And it's somewhat of a technical issue, but they want to try and keep the industrial park one way without necessarily turning it into a GC district. That's the rub.
Yeah, I think Comcast, you do the same thing. You bring your
box
back,
in there.
and that's. I mean, we do a very small. Believe me, it's a very small amount of bottled water pickup. Our goal is to deliver to your house.
Not worried.
That service. So.
I'm not worried. We want you to be happy. Certainly, you're a well-established business, and we want to maintain that as much as possible, I'm sure. So,
Cafe Excellence is in there, the coffee company. I recommend you use them. They're quite good.
But do they have a retail component?
Yes, they do. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. No, they don't do delivery.
Any closing remarks you want to make?
As the hour's late, I appreciate the board's consideration.
Anybody in the audience want to chime in about getting their salt from the Culligan man?
Got 3 people back there.
And I presume you probably provide salt for pools too, right?
We don't actually.
Just trying to help you sell some there.
Yeah.
Nobody?
Anything else? Anybody? Do we
All right, you want to deliberate?
Yes, for half a second. We're back, and Patty would, oh, Bob, sorry. Well, you look like, no, you don't. Okay. Bob, you have something you
Madam
want to?
Chairwoman, with regard to Z-17-06, I move that we approve the dimensional variance from the, quote, within 600 feet of the GC district, and, quote, requirements set forth in the IP use regulations of section 143-136A, relative to use-type water softener sales and service.
Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second that.
Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? You got it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your patience.
We should have had you first.
I think that's it, unless someone has something for the good of the board. Mike, anything? We'll see you all next week. Somebody want to make a motion?
Next month.
Oh, okay.
I'll make the motion that we adjourn.
Oh, good. Anybody want to second that?
I'll second it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'll
I'll get
second.
out of here.
This is yours.